I'm ready.
All right, the broadcast is live. Yeah, my matter of fact, my brother-in-law and nephew have lots of game cameras around. Because they both hunt, and they've just got game cameras out in the woods where they hunt. They know all the people who own the land and stuff like that. And they also had a game camera in their own yard to see the bear come and get their garbage can, completely silently too.
Yeah.
He didn't make a noise as he pulled up the garbage can, opened the lid, got the stuff out of size, and put it back. Not silently.
I wonder next time you talk to him, not the bear, your brother-in-law. Can you ask him what he recommends as far as outdoor cameras for catching, for seeing wildlife?
Good evening, Daisy, Rose, Lily, and Violet. We all get to be flowers tonight.
I just wonder which one I always wonder with Gus which one of us has which name.
Well, you're obviously Rose. Paolo's Lily, and I'm Violet.
I just rose back up out of bed about 15 minutes ago. So
yeah, because you rose out of bed. That's right. I can go with that.
I think Scott just likes to stand on the front of ocean liners going, I'm flying, or whatever
I've never seen that movie, although I know what it's about.
Well, you know how it ends.
That ends, yes.
It's a solid movie. I saw it once many years ago. It's decent.
Well, I can't swim, but I do love the water, which is ironic.
And I'm a fantastic swimmer, and I don't like getting wet.
I've been on an aircraft here, but I've never been on a cruise ship.
It's and I have a freaking pool.
Well, if I had a pool, I'd go swimming. I just don't want to go to the beach. There are humans there.
Oh yeah, there's humans and there's sand,
amongst other things.
I much prefer a pool to a beach. But that's because I grew up with pools in the I grew up as a woods person, not a beach person.
Right, me too. There's actually a really nice, it's a wildlife refuge, but sometimes it's open to the public and sometimes it's not. It's right on the Virginia-North Carolina border. And it's not really a public beach per se, but they do let people in there sometimes. That one's really nice.
I like rocky beaches, but the sandy beaches, there's a lot of romance that is associated with, running along the beach with your significant other and, being in the waves and stuff like that. And expectation versus reality, there's a huge gulf.
You run along the beach, and all of a sudden, that's when the giant squid shows up, and then it's all over.
Yeah, it's not the squid; it's the sand. It's just sand everywhere. It's like glitter.
If you ever get sand in your shorts, that's not pleasant.
You're right along the track of what I'm talking about.
Not pleasant at all. And then you have to find a shower somewhere quick, otherwise you're gonna.
Yeah, because if you go in the water and come back out and the wind blows, you just get sand back on you.
I was up on the North Shore of Long Island once, and that's when I learned the North Shore is all these little round white rocks, and the South Shore is sand.
Interesting. I had no idea.
I never knew that. Yeah, the whole beach was little white rocks. There was no sand.
It's what I like about oh my God, I sound like such a snob saying this, but when on Tuesday when I was at my mom's house, and Jared, at least you get to see it. It's the water that's outside my mom's house has just all little pebbles. So because it's kind of like an inlet, and then there are sand dunes, and then there's the ocean. So it's going down there is okay because you just get the little pebbles, and you can just sort of get your ankle.
I have to tell you a story that I remember the most about the North Shore. It was one 4th of July, as a matter of fact. I don't know, in the early 90s somehow, maybe 1990, 91, where Ed Murr and I decided to drive out to Long Island.
It's already
to go to our friend Monique's family 4th of July party.
Yes.
It was a whole long trip to get out there, but the one thing I remember, Monique is a very kind of demure girl.
Okay.
Good sense. She was an artist. She went to art school with it, but very kind of reserved and demure, except when we were playing volleyball. We were playing volleyball. Ed, Monique, and I, and her whole family. And her whole family is kind of demure and reserved. And every time Monique would hit the ball poorly, she'd exclaim, "Oh, fuck me hard." And everybody in the whole place, the whole place would be like, "Jill, oh, sorry." And then the same thing. I was like, I never even heard. She never even used blue language much. But I was like, somehow in that volleyball game, I was like, what?
You get really intense about volleyball.
Yeah. She must have been secretly competitive or something. I don't know what that was, but to this day, just thinking about it cracks me up.
That was the only team sport I was ever decent at, only because I could serve. Like that initial, I could plant it right where nobody was, but that's
not because you could dominate it by the net.
Say again.
That was a good volleyball player, and I learned that if you can find a person on the other team that can't return your serve very well, and you can target them, that's the key to racking a lot of points.
Of course, my Achilles heel was that I was a shitty player. Aside from that, so if I didn't hit it right the first time, then I was just a liability. But that's why I deliberately played sports badly most of the time, so they'd kick me off and make me sit on the side and draw in my sketchbook or read.
I'm going to show off my first comic of the week.
Oh, please do.
Is Usagi Yojimbo, the Dragon Bellow Conspiracy. A cover by David Peterson, he's got the same one. Who I've never heard of, but he did this really weird Usagi. Here, let me.
David Peterson also did a comic called Mouse Guard, Jared.
Oh, this is the Mouse Guard guy?
Yeah.
Okay. That's why he drew him so. It looks strange to see Usagi.
Compared to Stan, it's anytime anybody besides Stan does a cover, it looks odd to me.
Well, he just wanted who was it? Peach Momoko did some really nice covers for the last series, and at least she was going for the cute Usagi. So that's kind of what I'm used to, the cute Usagi. Do you have that is just a really weird Usagi cover. No way around it because he went for the realistic look. So he looks like a furry rabbit, which he usually. Did you see the in a weird angle? He's from. You're right. That's a worm's eye view, which I don't think we usually get with Usagi.
Yeah, that's true.
But when they did a, but of course it's as good as usual. This is the reprint book, so it's probably 5 or 6 issues. Usagi and some other what are they? Ronin. There's a couple of bounty hunters, and they're going to get together on an adventure, so that's going to be fun. But really, matter of fact, I read this one. I realized just before I came on that I hadn't read this one yet, and I was like, I should read it. So I just did, and it's. I run out of superlatives for Usagi. It's just always good.
Do you guys want my stupid question of the week?
Sure.
I've never read Usagi. Can you tell me briefly what it involves?
Rabbit Bodyguard. It's about
the translation.
It's by Stan Sakai.
Okay.
It used to be in black and white. These stories. These stories. Let me show you. These stories are actually from the late '80s, I think. Oh. And IDW is coloring them, and he's got this anthropomorphic animal style. So there's 35 years of Usagi stories to color.
Yeah, I've seen it all over the place. It just never.
And it's just its story. It takes place in feudal Japan. Whenever the time that gunpowder was first introduced, because I know this story has to do with gunpowder, but there's not a lot. There we go. Sleepy Reader says it's the best comic you've never read, Daisy. Sleepy Reader just started reading it a couple of years ago. Because For some reason, he didn't like it in black and white, but he's enjoying the new color recoloring.
It works great both ways to me. Either black.
Or, yeah, I have no problem with the black, but I've met people like that before. I mean, that there are some people who just don't like comics in black and white. I mean, as a longtime indie collector, I've noticed that there's just some people like, I can't read a comic in black. Well, for whatever reason, I don't, probably some perception thing.
They the dumbed down version of it. Think of an Akira Kurosawa samurai movie mixed with bone.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a hard time with the black and white stuff too, to tell you the truth. I mean,
yeah. But at last I dove into Usagi. Yeah, because it's really good. I mean, it's just it's one of the most consistently. There's only A and A+ Usagi stories. There's nothing. That's how. I mean, Stan Sakai is just a master storyteller.
I mean, I lean towards all the more of the horror stuff and the weirdo.
Yeah, that's historical fiction.
Every once in a blue moon, there will be some small horror elements in Usagi. But
there will.
It's not a comic.
Yeah.
No, and I like things that are like Japanese historical stuff.
He'll deal with mythology and things like that.
Yeah.
Cool. It'll go on my list as soon as I read the first 2 issues of
Tankers.
Yep, it's in catching up to do this week, so I still have to catch up on Tankers.
Speaking of Tankers, we'll show you that another bad idea comic came out this week, the 4th and final issue of ENIAC.
Ooh, that's another one I keep meant to pick up.
What did the calculator do this time?
Well, if you want to know the end of the story, that was pretty cool. Spoilers for all of you who don't want to hear the end of the story, but it was them. ENIAC was the first calculator computer that worked in the Manhattan Project, and the conceit of this story was it became an AI and has been around since the Manhattan Project, since World War II, and it somehow got out of whatever computer it was on and has been living. And people didn't know what it wanted. It was never, but it was in charge. We find out throughout the story that it was in charge of the world's nuclear arsenal. Neither the U.S. nor the Soviets actually had charge of their nuclear arsenal. And this story takes place because though ENIAC has done nothing hostile for the last 50 years, all of a sudden it started on a countdown. And everybody freaked out because, like, what is it counting down to? And so they went on a mission to try and destroy ENIAC. But then we also found out that ENIAC wasn't just a computer. It kind of became a meme that got into people's brains. So that ENIAC could kind of convince people to do things without actually, them knowing that they would think it was their idea, kind of thing. And so ENIAC also had this network of this network of people. Even some of the people who thought they were working to destroy ENIAC really went. And there was the story was about them trying to figure out how to destroy ENIAC. They couldn't have anything with them that had any chip in it or anything like that, because ENIAC could take over anything with them. But anyway, what was interesting about it was the climax of the story. It's more character and mood despite all the swords. I think that's Usagi. Yeah. The climax of the story was interesting because it turned out what the countdown was for was ENIAC was manipulating people to send himself into space. So ENIAC is now off of Earth and out into ENIAC wants to find what's out there. So there's all these machinations and manipulations with rockets and stuff. And everybody was like, what? And the kind of conclusion of it was, well, I guess he really wasn't interested in hurting us. We're just toddlers to him. So it was, the parent leaving the toddlers behind. So I thought that was an interesting conclusion to it. I enjoyed that. And it was a good, Matt Kint is good at this conspiracy stuff. Doug Braithwaite is a good artist. He did a lot of stuff for Valiant when he was there. And it had some nice David Lapham backup stories. Like this one, I can see Fabulous, the Hero Trade. I can see this as a continuation of another backup story where there was one, I think Matt Kint and David Lapham are both doing this. Fabulous is the name of this one. And they did another backup story where there was a Superman-like character. And some guy had him in the trunk of his car. And there was something, they didn't really give you any backstory or explanation, but somehow this guy killed Superman. Had him in the trunk of his car and was selling his body parts to the highest bidder. Because if you had Superman's finger, you could maybe get superpowers from it. And in this one, the backup story, which didn't have anything, the Fabulous Hero Trade. I think the Hero Trade is going to be the name of the different backup series. And in this, there's a guy grinding a tooth to get high. So he's grinding a tooth to get high, and you don't know this story is related to the other one. He's grinding a tooth to get high. He's selling it to his friends. They're getting it. Gives him this wacky hallucinogenic thing, and then he ends up. What was that?
Enamel gets you high.
Whatever's in this tooth is getting them high. They don't know what the guys are. I don't know. He may be mixing it with drugs or something.
Yeah, but anyway, I don't think Matt Kint has ever tried anything stronger than 7-Up.
Well, what it is, as we see here, some guys show up and as the guys are all OD and take all the stuff and take the tooth, and it looks like they're rebuilding the Superman piece by piece. Mm-hmm. They're going and collecting all the parts. So I guess it was Superman's tooth that was getting them high somehow.
Okay.
I'm still wondering how you could cut off part of Superman's body.
Well, it's not really Superman. It's just some really strong guy who was supposed to be immortal as far as anyone knew, who suddenly disappeared. And no one knows what happened to him. And this guy's got him in his trunk. And I think he's actually still alive.
So he's not Superman. He's just a
Superman-like character. He's supposed to be,
gotcha.
That level. But this is only the second story I know, which is who I think is in that. The name ENIAC makes me laugh every time you say it out loud.
In the book, did they address why they didn't just cut the power to the computer?
Oh no, there wasn't. It was gone.
I'm just saying.
By the time they knew it was a danger, it was gone. Like
But there were no other computers.
I always find it funny where people draw their lines. Like my friend, it got out somehow. Whatever. My friend Rob didn't like it and couldn't read. He's like, "Oh, come on, ENIAC was just a calculator. There's no way it can be." I'm like, Rob, you continually read stories about people who can fly, shoot blasts out of there. It's just where people draw their line if they're going to believe it or not.
Yeah.
You have to accept that ENIAC could be an AI in order to buy into this story. And if you don't buy in. So it's just where you draw your line, whether you'll like it or not. Like I said, my friend Rob.
I can't even accept that ENIAC might be an AI, but there are other considerations to have. The ENIAC can't go anywhere because there's no internet and there's no other computer for it to go into.
They probably explained it in the book, but I don't care about the explanations. Those kind of explanations to me aren't like, as long as I buy into ENIAC can be an AI and escape, I don't really need the explanation, but that's me. That's where I draw the line with this, sort of technobabble mumbo jumbo. I'm okay with any mumbo jumbo they hand me, and let's get on with the story. But not everyone's like. Some people draw like Rob drew the lines. Like, I can't buy into it.
I thought it was just where people draw that story. I was thinking this is like the Disney Corporation. But then when you said it was going into space, I'm like, oh, it's Jeff Bezos.
Space.
Did ENIAC ever figure out how to write 5318008?
I don't know. Boobs.
Every time I hear
Probably.
mumbo jumbo, all I can hear is Bela Lugosi saying, "Mumbo, perhaps. Jumbo, perhaps not." I forget what it's from, but or
And
maybe
every time I think of Bela Lugosi, I think of that scene in Ed Wood where, what was the actor that played Bela? I can't think of his name, but I can see his face plain as day. Walter Matthau.
ah,
Oh, he also played in Space 1999 as the lead.
Yeah, yeah.
God, I loved that show.
Oh, God. I can't remember the actor's name, but God, he was hilarious in that part.
All of a sudden, I can't remember his name either. Karloff.
Yeah.
Karloff.
That's going to drive me crazy to think of his name.
There's mine in the comics. He can accept anything as long as the suits button up the correct size. That's his. That's where he draws on. He's always complaining about suits.
Well, see, for him, you
Buttons
just
are
get
wrong.
a comic that has a spacesuit that doesn't have buttons that button up, and then you're good.
Or you have hidden breastfeeding zippers like Loki. Did you see that today? That was I forget the woman's name who plays Loki, the female Loki on the TV show. She just showed a picture where she was thanking her wardrobe person because in the Loki outfit, the wardrobe person put hidden zippers so that she can breastfeed between takes. I was like, all right. I guess when you got a new baby.
Well, if they're hidden, that's how you keep it low key.
And that's where I learned one of my friends who I went to, he's like the only friend I still I've only seen him on Facebook in the last 30 years. But he went to my first school with me, not my all my friends who I know went to my second college with me. My first college, I only know one person, John Polona. And I found out that he won a contest to design an alien and be on Deep Space Nine. So he showed up. Yeah, and whenever Deep Space Nine was on, what was that, the early 90s?
Yeah, early to mid 90s. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so he appeared as the alien in full makeup and costume as the alien in an episode of Deep Space Nine.
No way. Did he have any lines?
I don't think so. I don't think it was just you were just in the background. But he mentioned that was a lot better than his costume. They didn't even give him a zipper on the pants.
There you go. Or not go in that case.
Yeah.
Problematic.
You mentioned that Ricardo Delgado, the comics artist that does Age of Reptiles series, he also worked in the art department on Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
So he was creating aliens and stuff for that show all the time.
That's cool. Yeah, John Polona. Well, he worked for a lot of he worked for gaming companies, I think, too, out of college. You can see some of his art was in like gaming manuals. He was a good artist. Still is. I think he's an art director in Pennsylvania now, or something like that.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. The next comic I got was Monstrous, issue 35.
They always have such pretty art on the covers. I love.
Oh, it does.
Especially that one. I see you.
Lots of sideways eyes, lots of masks, and on the back is always one of these old god designs, and very old. Lots of flowery pencil art. I don't think this one's inked. I don't think in general. Who is this? Taneda Sana Takeda. There we go. I almost have her name right. That's the artist. I think she's from Japanese too. I don't even know that she speaks English. 'Cause I think I saw an interview with her in Japanese, but I'm not 100% sure of that. My memory could be wrong. And Marjorie Liu is the writer. And it's issue 35, so I like it. This is high fan. You've read some of this, haven't you, Daisy?
I have. Yeah, I have the first two graphic novels, and I think I got through one so far.
Okay. By this, somewhere on issue 30 or maybe late 20s, the actual shooting war started. There was sort of adventure before then and lots of politics, and then the war broke out. As there was, expecting the whole time in the book. It's not, there was.
I don't think I got to that point.
Yeah, that wouldn't be till like book 5 or something.
Oh, okay.
But that's what's been going on in this. Lots of infighting and betrayal and war and poor innocent people dying, while all the Dusk Court and the Dawn Court and all these crazy people go about their business.
As one does.
Have you read any Monstrous, Paolo? Do you get that over there?
Yeah, well, Monstrous has been published here, but I've never even thought about buying it. I actually don't find it attractive.
Ah, okay.
Oh, yeah?
I can actually understand. It's a little the artwork can be murky because it's done in a style with color over pencils. And sometimes I notice when people do that, they tend to obscure stuff with the color because it saves them time.
Right.
And she doesn't do that a whole lot. What was that?
Is the color done like by computer, or is it done by?
Yeah, it's digital. Let me see if I can find an example of what I mean.
By computer. Like I just suddenly lost the word digital. I'm losing my perspicacity.
Let me see if I can find a good example. Well, here's one. Like this nice drawing of the woman here. But at least a third of that panel is just murky color.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So she doesn't have to come up with any detail there or any drawing there.
Leave it to the
sometimes
colorist.
That can get a bit tiresome. It's like I want to see a little more clarity sometimes. Yeah, and sometimes the color palette is very muddy, and things get hazy, and they kind of use that haze to not finish things, kind of stuff. And it's just, and I think she does it well. I've seen other artists do it poorly, but I can understand that turning people off.
I think the artist that did that the best of all was Bob Peak.
Oh yeah,
he would
made that his style
to his advantage.
Yeah, he made that his style as an illustrator, and he started in the '60s, right?
50s, 40s, 60s. I'm not sure when he started.
I think that's it. Yeah, he was part of like a new wave of illustrators, more painterly and he kind of mixed painterly with highly illustrative too.
Yeah, almost like Bill Sienkiewicz in that regard.
Yeah, he influenced Sienkiewicz. He influenced a lot of people of Sienkiewicz's generation, which is funny because I'm like 10 years after that generation.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was going through art school, no one liked Bob Peak in art.
Yeah.
To us, 18 to 20 years old, Bob Peak was an old hack. We didn't like his style at all. Because he was, what was hot all through the 70s. And this was 1984, 1985. So he was old hat to us.
Which books did he do? I don't remember.
No, he's not a comic guy. He's an illustrator. He did like covers of TV Guide. And
he did a lot of movie posters.
I got you. I probably know the style if I saw it. I just don't know.
If you saw his work, you'd recognize the style because he was everywhere in the late 60s and 70s.
Two famous movie posters he did were Excalibur and Apocalypse Now.
I know exactly the guy you're talking about.
And he was famous long before that.
Right.
Like, I think it was the late 60s he got famous as an illustrator. But it's funny, I didn't even learn his name. Well, I should say I had forgotten his name.
No.
Until Walt Simonson started talking about him once.
Who is Walt?
I haven't seen him since COVID much. I'll have to go to lunch again one of these days, but I'm sure he's fine. But he started, singing Bob Peak's praises, and I couldn't place him. It's like Bob Peak. I'm like, and then I remember, it's like, he's the guy no one liked when I was in school. But who was influential? Actually, who was in the influential? I would say the most influential illustrators in my small corner of art school up in Sullivan County were the old school ones. It was were like the guys from the teens and the 20s. J.C. Leyendecker.
Oh, okay.
Randall Flagg. What's Flags? James Montgomery Flagg. I'm saying Randall Flagg and Reuben Flagg, the two characters. So it was like we were all into those classic guys,
like N.C. Wyeth.
N.C. Wyeth, yeah. Because keep in mind the 1970s for illustration was very kind of specific. Bob Peak was one of the big influential guys, and it was very kind of. And of course, Drew Struzman was big too. So it's like the Art of Star Wars stuff was pretty big. But most of my friends really liked those classic guys. It's funny now.
When I was in art school at the same time, it was the only contemporary guy whose work I liked was John J. Muth, and otherwise it was all like I was super into Alphonse Mucha. And and
Mucha, he was big. You mentioned him, yeah. Yep, he never goes out of style.
And why can't I remember his name? It's like the little Nemo.
Winsor McKay.
Yeah, he was my. That was a huge one for me. I was like, oh my god, I love that style, and I kept trying to draw in that style, and I never quite managed it.
Yeah, I think if you were going to school for illustration in the early 80s, you completely rebelled against all that 1970s illustration.
I can see that. The 80s is when it got like everything got all slick.
Did you like John Berkey?
What was that?
Did you like John Berkey?
I
don't even know him. He doesn't. At least doesn't ring a bell.
Primarily known as a science fiction artist.
Okay.
But his best known piece for most people is probably the 70s adaptation of King Kong. He did the movie poster for that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Where he's straddling the two World Trade Center.
Right. Yeah. Oh, and of course, Frank Frazetta never goes out of style.
It's so funny. I was just about to say Frank Frazetta.
There's always somebody who likes Frank Frazetta.
Yep. I love that. As soon as I saw that, and the Hildebrandt brothers, who I only knew because of the Star Wars poster.
Yeah, but I don't think. I mean, I liked the Hildebrandt brothers, but I don't think many people knew them. And it's funny, when I went to my second school, which was a fine arts school, nobody knew illustrators. It was like, did Berkeley do the Dune covers?
No,
I don't remember those.
I
just remember
if the one Sleepy Reader is talking about is the classic Dune cover, like the first edition. That artist's name is John. It's like his last name is spelled Schorrer or something along those lines. I won't do a Tim and mispronounce it because I don't know how it's pronounced. But
I've realized over the years that I never learned many science fiction illustrators.
Oh, there's so many good ones. Oh my god.
Yeah, I never. Oh, Roger Dean was another one who was influential. My roommate loved Roger Dean, who did the Yes covers.
I was a huge fan of that guy's work. But I always know the work, but I never know the names.
And if you watch the movie Avatar, you see where half of that came from.
Was that Roger Dean?
Indirectly, yeah.
Yeah. Well, probably directly.
Well,
Disney's been known to do that.
A lawsuit involved.
Disney has. I've heard stories of Disney going up to artists, a specific famous artist, whoever it might be, when they're going to make their movie and say, we want to hire you as a consultant. We're going to steal your style anyway. So you may as well come on as a consultant. And if they say no, they just steal their style.
Yep, and Disney has so much money that they just, you bring a lawsuit against them.
I'm not going to name names on the stream here, but there's one famous artist who did a series of children's books in the 90s, I guess. There's a very popular science fiction series called Property. That one of the movies basically used his architecture. And about a day before the release, they called him and say, hey, this is what's going on. And it turns out, and I didn't know this, but this was explained to me by somebody else, that they have what they call a kill fund. Okay. Where basically, if they think a lawsuit or something like that's going to happen, they'll just outright offer the person a certain amount of money. It's usually 6 figures. This was a 7-figure sum. And the person just chose to take the upper road and said, no, that's okay. And of course, all the artist buddies were like, take the money.
He had Roger Dean and Frazetta posters of Edwin Moore in the 70s. Yeah. Oh, Dave McKean.
He's different. I like Dave McKean. If you're a traditional illustrator style, he'll take some getting used to. But I like Dave McKean a lot.
I generally like him. I want to reread Cages. I bought and read Cages when it came out. And I still have it on my shelf.
Right.
And I may have read it one more time in the 90s, but I haven't read it in so long I don't remember it anymore. So I actually want to reread some Dave McKean Cages. But I generally like his work.
Yeah. Even if you don't like Sandman, you can get the art book that has all his covers on it.
Yeah. And I don't like Sandman, so I don't have a lot of
Sandman. The covers are neat. Because they're all multimedia. They're not just painted. They're all little collages he's put together.
Yeah. He'd glue anything down to a canvas.
I don't think I've read anything by McKean except for Arkham Asylum, which is far from my favorite Batman comic.
Yeah, I don't like that much either.
I think McKean only seems to work if he's working with somebody else, and there are captions.
Like I said, I remember Cages he wrote himself. It was magazine size. I think they have it all in a collection somewhere now.
Yeah, I've got to remember that somewhere.
It's about 8 issues, I think, magazine size. And like I said, and if I remember, it was just kind of, it was like a slice of life story, but not really. There was weird things going on in it, but it wasn't like an adventure. But like it's so long ago, I can't remember.
Yeah, sometimes his art style reminds me a little bit of Ralph Steadman.
Yeah. He influenced a lot of people. Hey, everyone. Black Orchid is nice. Black Orchid I remember being nice, but the story didn't do anything for me. And our next comic of the week is another issue of Spawn. He almost had me with this one. I liked the art in it, first of all, by, who was it again? Carlo Barberi, but it takes place in Italy. So he gave it this sort of classic impressionist Italian color scheme that was very kind of refreshing through some of it. But then, this is what kills me. The writing on it was pretty good, mostly. But then at the end, I just want to read it. See that picture? See that picture of the guy standing there in that Tim Truman-like outfit? One of the things I've noticed Todd McFarlane likes to do, which you're not supposed to do when you're writing the comic, is describe the action. Because you don't need to.
There's a picture.
There's a picture. One of the things I noticed Todd McFarlane likes to do is describe the action that's not going on in the picture. Because there's this guy, he's standing there posing with 2 guns. And like I said, most of this was solidly written until I got to this last page when it's like He lands on the trailer like a Navy SEAL going into combat, ready for the enemy he's about to face, driven by his disgust at the failures of those who constantly remind him of their superiority. He lands on the trailer like a Navy SEAL? No, he's just standing there. You've missed the he lands part.
Yeah.
That's like stuff like that drives me crazy. That's like comic writing 101. You don't write a description. You don't write a description of what's going on in the panel. And you don't write a description of what's not going on in the panel either. That's not a good idea.
That just makes me want to do a parody of it where he lands on the trailer like an Easter seal.
There you go. But most of the rest of it was pretty. I was actually enjoying the writing on this one, especially after that. How much spawn is too much spawn? 64 pages. After reading that 64-page Spawn last week, the special, I was like, that's too much Spawn. I cannot read Todd McFarlane's writing for 64 pages. No way. I really want to like Spawn better than I do because it's the last of the $2.99 books. Besides the kids' books, as Sleepy Reader points out, I think Scooby-Doo is still $2.99.
So you even have to read comics old man style?
Oh, if it's Todd McFarlane, yeah. Yeah. Though I'll have to show you a book later that I invented a new old man. We'll get to that. But it was actually a good issue. I enjoyed this one more than last issue, which was all build up to the Spawn universe and was awful because there was tons of explanation that you'd never want to read.
That kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah. When's the last time anyone here ever read Spawn?
I've never read Spawn.
Yeah. This is the first time I've read it. I think I've read 6 issues in a row now. This is for the first time, and I really just want to like it.
I bought the books back when they first came out. I owned like the first 10 issues or so, first run, and I never read them. Oh, I think I read the first one.
It doesn't even read like a novel. It reads like a bad comic book. Landing on top of a train would be a better panel. Yeah, than a pose. Just landing would have been good. Issue 10 was the last issue he read. Was that the Cerebus one that they just reprinted? Yeah. That may have been the last one I read.
If you bought the Portuguese edition, number 10 was the same as number 11. Because issue number 10 was never translated into any country. Dave Sim would not allow it.
Why not?
Because Dave Sim does not allow translations unless he understands how the translation is going to be made. And since he doesn't speak any other language.
But he's licensed a lot of stuff to small fry people, I notice. He like some band in Germany was using Cerebus as their logo, so he just gave him a perpetual license to it.
Yeah, but
they were like some small band.
That's the logo. Cerebus does not get published in other countries.
It's like I think he gave the Turtles guys the rights to that issue that Cerebus is in the Turtles.
So because he can't speak the language, he doesn't want it translated into that language?
Because he doesn't have absolute control.
He's quirky. I think he's given up on absolute control in the last few years, but I don't know about if he's had anything licensed. So I don't know what's going on with it. But
it got to the point where nobody in other countries cared that Dave Sim was still doing Cerebus.
What it is he's now planning for his own death. And I think he said Cerebus is going to be in the public domain after he dies.
Interesting.
And he's got some house up there in Canada where he's making sort of a museum of Cerebus, and he's handing that over to some younger guy once he dies. So they'll be able to publish it once he dies in Portugal.
Well, you know what that means. Multiple crossovers at Marvel featuring Cerebus.
Yeah.
And he will join the X-Men and the Avengers at the same time.
Speaking of Cerebus,
there you go.
Here's the latest Strangers. Here's the latest Cerebus in Hell #1.
Oh,
Stranger.
You realize that looks like a pair of boobs, right?
Yes. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to.
It's his
eyes.
Boobs, but
I wouldn't. But what it is since Dave Sim can't really draw anymore, he makes these comic strips, cut and paste style. And I think he publishes on the web too, and he uses old woodcuts in them too, because the whole idea is Cerebus died at the end of the series, so now he's in hell with Dante from Dante's Inferno and Virgil from Dante's Inferno as his guide. So he's got old woodcuts of Cerebus and Dante, of Dante and Virgil, that he uses in the comic strip, along with Cerebus cutouts, and just writes jokes about him. And this one, and you know what's funny too? Each issue is a new #1, and each issue is a different parody cover. Like this is a Strangers in Paradise parody. But he also has taken to putting the print run on the cover, numbering each individual issue. This is copy 1023 of 1961. And it's interesting to see how the print run goes up and down based solely on the cover. Like the Baby Yoda cover from a couple months ago, the print run was up in the 3000s. A Strangers in Paradise, much less popular than Baby Yoda, the print run is only 1800.
I think I might be the only person who's never seen Baby Yoda. Like, I never watched The Mandalorian. I know I should, but I've never seen it.
It's a solid show.
Yeah,
I heard it's very, very good. I don't know why. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, I also liked the brief run drawn by Larson and inked by McFarlane. So it was just a couple of years ago that was. And it was that was the first time I bought Spawn regularly because they were doing it. Oh, and each issue usually has a theme of the jokes. And this issue was so bizarre. So Cerebus is in hell. Dante and Virgil are commenting on hell. The devil's there too. And in this issue, a whole bunch of hipsters die. And so someone in hell invents a shrink ray and rents out Cerebus's insides. So all the jokes are about hipsters living in Cerebus's heart and large intestine. And it's just like,
okay.
This has got to be the weirdest issue yet of Cerebus.
Wow.
That's a very Rick and Morty plot.
I mean, he dedicated one issue to like I think a couple issues ago, which was one of my least favorites, was dedicated to like the Real Housewives. They're all Real Housewives jokes, and I was just like, okay, whatever. And like one issue was all about Canadian politics. So you never know what you're going to get.
I've never seen a Real Housewives episode, so it's stuff like that that like the jokes go completely over my head.
Yeah, exactly, which is why I didn't get any of the jokes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, comic strips do too. Sometimes if the comedy is either based on something that, going on at the same time, or especially with political matters. Yeah. Somebody reading that 25 years down the line is like, this is supposed to be funny?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's anytime it gets into some pop culture thing, I have a 50-50 chance of understanding what the joke is.
Right. And it may have been perfectly funny at the time it was produced. It's just later on it loses the impact. So.
Yeah.
Kind of like Doonesbury versus Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah, and it's it does that too if you watch 70s sitcoms. Like if you go back and watch like Sanford and Son, it's remarkably relevant to today. Like some of the jokes are so like it's still hilarious because it's busting on.
I'll tell you a funny story about Sanford and Son is I can't remember the lady's name, but the actress who played Aunt Esther.
Oh, I forget her name too, but she's awesome.
Yeah, she was the weed hookup for everybody on the show.
Yeah.
I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy that played Lamont, who later in life turned out to be a minister later on, he was telling this story in a radio interview. Like she'd come in with her purse, and distribute the weed to people. Like I got a little present for you, backstage or whatever. And it was a funny story. Oh God, it was hysterical.
I have to look that up. I don't know why I can't remember her name, because usually I'm just bad with names, but she did really scorching stand-up comedy back in the day, just like Red Fox did.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting watching those shows, but there are political issues that come up, like they make Nixon jokes.
Sure.
And all kinds of relevant to the time jokes, and if you didn't live through it, or if you didn't know your history, you'd be like, what the hell are they talking about?
Sim spent what seemed like months explaining some made-up street ball game at one point. I think that was a whole story arc where Cerebus was like retired and hiding out from and became like a professional athlete in this weird street ball game. And like the whole story arc was about Cerebus playing the street ball game. That was strange.
I wonder if he just made it up on the spot, kind of like the Fizbin in the Star Trek episode.
Who knows? It went on for a while.
Wow.
Oh, and here's a comic that I haven't read yet, but I love this cover because I have this is the Department of Truth issue 10. Check out that cover.
Oh, I love that cover. That was in Comic Shop News a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yes, that was the cover to the Comic Shop News.
Yep, that's beautiful.
And matter of fact, it was this cover that made me go to Hoopla and read the first trade of Department of Truth on Hoopla. Then I just got issues 6 through 9, which I haven't read yet. And this is 10, so I got to read 6 through 10 of Department of Truth, which is I was waiting for this one to come out so I could read them all together.
What does the artwork look like inside?
It's pretty. It looks like Bob Peak.
Is it? But I mean, is it in color or is it black and white? What is it?
Yeah, it's in color.
Oh, that's kind of nice.
I'm not overly fond of the artwork.
Is it watercolor?
Yeah, it looks like, oh my goodness, there's a whole bunch of, I just saw, there's a whole bunch of pages of Bigfoot's diary in it.
Oh my God. All right, right there, you just totally sold me on it. All you had to say was Bigfoot, and I'm like, yes.
I think that I read something that they're going to spend a couple of issues on Bigfoot in this. So
if it's Bigfoot,
that cover is just stunning.
I'm in.
See, if they did Bigfoot's diary, it should be in disappearing ink.
That cover artwork is right up my alley, though. It's very pretty.
Speaking of Bigfoot's diary, since I put a lot of Bigfoot jokes in my strip, today I posted my 3,000th Four Talking Boxes comic strip.
That's a lot.
11 and a half years I've been doing that. But you can go to radiantcomics.com or jaredosborne.com and find it. Let's see. I'm turned off the Department of Truth art. To me, it gets in the way. I'm currently struggling with the first trade. I understand that. I mean, I read the first trade digitally. It might be one of those that looks better digitally because I haven't read any actual issues yet. Because murky art digitally looks better. 3,000, yeah. It's writing 3,000 comic strips takes time.
Takes 11 and a half years.
I'm amazed I got to 3,000 myself.
I mean, and it's not even all that you do. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be one thing for me to do 3,000 things, but I didn't get anything else done.
3,000.
You're so weird.
Wow, time passes, doesn't it? See, I have done so many of them and I do it so regularly, I don't consider it an accomplishment most of the time. It's what I'm supposed to accomplish.
Gotcha.
So I have to take 3,000. That's yeah. I have to take a moment and bask in the accomplishment. Like I said, it's funny how the mind works sometimes. There are certain things I get done all the time. Like I have 3,000 of those. I think I passed 500 of my message T gag strip, and I passed 500 with those are both once a week of my drifting and dreaming comic strip. But since I've been getting them done for so long, it's like they don't even count in my mind. It's like I have to get those done. So it doesn't count as me getting something done, even though I've gotten it done. So it's kind of, it's weird. It's weird.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to bask in the accomplishment of getting 3,000 comic strips done for me.
Yeah, I would say just take a moment to bask.
Yeah.
Why not?
Bask.
Treat yourself.
Why not?
Just don't be a bass terrorist.
Oh yeah, no, they're
I will not be that.
they make things very uncomfortable.
Yeah. And then let's see what else. Kaiju Max continues. Always good. We're on season 6, issue 2, with our lots of bright colors in this one.
God, that's a lot of purple. Yeah.
And this, of course, the basic idea is a prison for kaiju. And each season, there's sort of a different plot going on. Don't listen to Basque jokes. Each issue, there's a different. Each season, there's a different plot going on. And this plot is Earth is being invaded by some aliens. So they're offering the kaiju reduction on their sentences if they fight for Earth. And that's what's going on. And this one, they're just digging trenches so far. But it's still the relationship between the kaiju. And in this one, they tried to have a little truth and reconciliation committee with the kaiju and the people who lived in the city that it stomped like 15 years ago. The people were like, what? Everybody died. My friends died. You crushed everybody. And there was like no reconciliation going on.
Right.
The kaiju were like, whatever. But it's always fun. If you've never read Kaiju Max, it's a fun one. There's,
I've always wanted to read that, but I never got around to buying any of them.
And there's all sorts of, like, I finally got Bunch to read this one.
How did you get him to do anything?
I think he finally came to it on his own after me mentioning it. Well, our friend Bunch, the book on him is, if too many people tell him that this is good, he should check it out. The more people tell him, the less interested he is in it for some reason.
If he doesn't discover it himself, it's not good. And I can't tell you how many times I've recommended something to him, he refuses to watch it or read it or whatever. And then years later, he discovers it himself and is like, this is the best thing ever. I'm like, you jackass, I told you that 10 years ago. And
He just discovered Invincible because of the cartoon. Now, I've got all 12 volumes of Invincible over here that have been in my shelf for 15 years now. And Bunch usually comes up at least once a year when I have my barbecue, and he stays up for the weekend. And every time he walks by him, he goes, I really should read Invincible sometime. I'm like, yeah, it's good. You should read Invincible. And he never did. And then he said, oh, yeah, I finally decided to read the comics. They're really good. I'm like, Bunch. He's like, oh, I don't remember you telling me to read them. I'm like, yeah, that's because you ignore everybody who tells you to.
Yep.
But anyway, around season 3 or 4, he finally started reading Kaiju Max because he's a giant monster fan. And he started telling me because I'm not a giant monster fan. So he started telling me all the giant monster, those inside references in here to giant monster, which I don't know because I'm not a giant monster fan. Like, oh yeah, Time Before Time has been a good read so far. That's the one that there's 2 issues of, but a guy who stole a time machine is now lost in time. I've enjoyed that one thoroughly. I
was watching, going on the side, I was watching Sleepy Reader's video the other day, and he had a Wonder Woman book, and the color scheme on it was black and white and gold or yellow. And I was actually impressed with that. I thought it looked interesting.
Yeah.
I
guess they were riffing on Batman, black and white.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
It was just interesting to see that one color added in with the black and white.
Oh yeah,
really popped. Yeah.
Black, white, and red. I think Matt Wagner did that with Grendel a long time ago.
Plus, the art that they showed looked more looked better than what I would expect for that type of a book.
Yeah. Well, I think that they make it an anthology. I know, like, Mark Chiarello originally invented that for Batman Black and White. He was DC's longtime art director.
Yeah, I met him at a convention years ago.
I think he started there in, like, I don't even know, like 92, 93.
Yeah.
They fired him in a couple of years ago in one of their purges. But he was the art director there. He wasn't an editor, but I think it was the one thing he edited was Batman Black and White, because he was friends with all the artists.
Right.
And he picked all the artists, and that was sort of really an art-driven book.
Yeah.
And I think they're doing the same thing with Wonder Woman. The art was good in Wonder Woman, but the writing was particularly weak. Yeah, I think those like, I think it's all about the art, especially since if there's short stories in there, if I'm not mistaken, and I think the art of writing short stories for comics is just doesn't exist anymore. I mean, there's
not
hardly
in mainstream comics.
No.
Yeah. I mean, really, the last thing I can think of that really got that to any degree was Dark Horse Presents.
Yeah, and even those were continued.
Right.
Often, they didn't always finish in 8 pages. Though one of the things I just read on Hoopla had short stories in it, which is, I think this is one Sleepy Reader likes too, because I know him from, what is it? Cain and Abel. Pages. Where's the beginning of it? Shaky Cain and Krent Abel. I think this just came out this week in the comic shops, and it's also on Hoopla, the library app. And I only know the name Shaky Cain from Sleepy's channel. He's bought other stuff too. So I guess it's these two. It's Image, but it was like a square. I think the book is like $12 or $13. Which is why I saw it on Hoopla and said, I'll read it digitally.
Hold that cover up again for a second.
Yeah, Cain and Abel was so it's out on Hoopla the week it came out into the stores.
It almost looks like a luchador that's drawn by Charles Burns.
Yeah, there is a lot of Charles Burns in the one side especially. But this has got short stories in it. Oh, they're not, what is that one? 16 pages. 16 pages and what is that, 15 pages. So fairly short stories. It's got a series of them in it, and they were decent, but not great. Oh, it's very large dimension mag, like Raw. Okay, that must be cool to see it in then. I like large format everything, but I enjoyed reading that on Hoopla, but I haven't seen a real copy of it yet.
I'm not sure I want to know how much that Treasury reprint of Captain America's Bicentennial Battles is. I imagine
$30.
Ouch.
Yeah.
It's
not even hardcover, is it?
No.
Though that made me realize I have it on my shelf.
Yeah, I have it like 20 feet away from you right now.
I saw that they were coming out with it. And it's like, oh, that's cool. That's something I would get.
Right.
I'd like to have the Bicentennial Battles. Then I went, you know what, I better, because over the years, people have given me Treasury editions.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the ones I have from my childhood, but I don't always remember the ones that people have given me over the years. And sure enough, I went over there and found it on my shelf. I was like, oh, I don't have to buy it if I don't want to. But it's like, if it was even hardcover for $30, that would be cool. Like I got the Superman Muhammad Ali one when they put out a facsimile of that in hardcover. That was like $30, $35 or something. But I'm like, at least it's hardcover.
Right.
I'll take that. I'll take that.
Yep. Yeah, you probably can get the original Treasury for less.
Yeah, you can. I looked on eBay. Before I looked on my shelf even, I said, $30. I wonder if I could get a copy on eBay. You get a copy on eBay for $20, a solid copy for $20.
I wonder what the paper quality is like on the reprint.
It's got to be better than that old newsprint, which I looked at mine and went, it's pretty good still, but it's big. I think the bigger the newsprint too, the more delicate it feels.
Right.
It's like sometimes those Treasury editions. You can get the original Treasury for less. I would like to get a nice new printing of it, but $30. If I found it for $20, maybe.
Yeah, because you think, if that's $30, you could throw in another $90 and get an artist edition of something.
It's just a little expensive. It's a little expensive for a lark,
right?
For a whim. My whimsical budget is not that big.
Except when it comes to movie memorabilia.
That's the one whimsical thing I got.
Yeah, but you didn't pay a lot for that, though.
Well, it was $160. That's a lot for me. But it wasn't
for a movie prop. That's
dirt cheap. And I now have 3 pictures of people posing for that screenshot up at Daisy's place, and she's been the one throwing the barbecues.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Finally.
Let's see. The next comic I got this week is Crossover issue 7. I found, and this one's by a different team. It's instead of Donnie Cates and Jeff Shaw, it's Chip Zdarsky, Phil Hester, and Andre Parks this issue. And I didn't know that Chip Zdarsky was his pen name, first of all.
I didn't know.
It's amazing that comic book artists and writers use pen names, but Tulu Tay is a pen name, Frank Quitely is a pen name. I guess Chip Zdarsky is a pen name, too.
And Jim Zub, too.
Jim Zub is a pen name?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It was fun. And in case you don't know, the plot of the crossover is the general plot is one day the superhero world crosses over into our world. Don't know how it happened. And you can tell the fictional superhero world because they've got dots on their faces. Otherwise, they're completely real. And there's been some crossover with and you can see Marvel and DC characters in the background. But there's been actual crossover with creator-owned characters. Like Madman showed up in it.
Right.
Some other people who I can't remember. But anyway, this one, and also one of the things that's happened in this is the comic industry has collapsed. Because people are terrified of superheroes because all of a sudden they became real and came over into our world. And then they built a dome around Denver because our military was going after them because whatever. So now Denver is sealed off from the rest of the country. Everyone's trying to figure out what to do. But this is a done-in-one issue written by Chip Zdarsky, starring Chip Zdarsky. Which could go very, very wrong.
Right.
But it actually didn't. It was well done because one of the things that's happening in our world since the comic industry collapsed, superheroes are hated, and sometimes, not always, the superhero creators have been hunted down because people are mad at them.
How would they know that they're superhero creators?
Because they track them down. The internet. Who knows? You could track down Grant Morrison if you want. You know what he's like.
The question is, why would people think I blame Grant Morrison for having superheroes for having superheroes exist in the real world? Nobody knows who Grant Morrison is.
What do you build a dome over Denver out of?
Why do you fill a plastic bag full of gasoline? I don't. After this last year and a half, anything you tell me people do that sounds crazy, I think they'll do it. After that someone shut down I don't know if you've the news. When was that? 2 months ago. Someone shut down one of the what are they called? They held it for ransom.
Oh, refinery.
Someone hacked in to one of the pipelines down south in the southern United States and held it for ransom until they paid it off. And so gasoline wasn't moving.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And
people went.
They were like, "Oh, this might make some minor gas shortages in the southeast for a week."
Yeah.
People panicked.
Basically, what it ended up being, roughly. Yeah.
Went to the pump. Were filling up everything they could with gasoline, like it was Mad Max End of the World.
Yeah.
There were people filling up a plastic bag full of. They were filling up not a gas can, a plastic bag full of.
And cardboard boxes.
So I have no problem believing that somebody would hunt down comic book creators.
Yeah, there was a lady in South Carolina that actually caught on fire doing that.
Yeah.
There was a lady in South Carolina that was filling up some kind of open container, and she caught on fire doing it.
It was like that. It was like that episode of The Gang solves the gas crisis, and It's Always Sunny, when they're driving around with open garbage cans full of gasoline in the back of their car. That's what people were doing, for real.
Yeah.
So that makes me go, they'll hunt down. Some people want to hunt down comic books, but anyway.
Because for the majority of people, if you tell them, "Oh, this guy writes comic books," people will still answer back, "You mean somebody writes those?"
Exactly. But if comic book characters became real and started wreaking havoc, they'll learn who that. But anyway, not only he's on the run because he's afraid people will hunt him down, but they even tell his real name in here, Steve something. So Steve something's on the run, but he's also afraid because he's like, what is the line? Let me see if I can find the line for you. He's got a great line where he says, where he mentions sex criminals number 13 or something. Oh, here it is. He's explaining why he's also on the run, because he's the writer of Sex Criminals, his indie book. Issue 14 of Sex Criminals. In the middle of the issue, we did what all the hacks eventually do. We went meta. Matt wrote us having a conversation in book. He portrayed himself as sad, full of doubt, and I was Chip, in quotes, crass, self-centered, an online persona. So he's afraid his own fictional version is going to come and hunt him down. So he's not only running from people who hate comic book creators now. He's running from his own fictional version of himself, who shows up, but turns out is trying to save him. So it's this really strange story about Chip Zdarsky and Chip Zdarsky, the fictional Chip Zdarsky, having this little fictional Chip Zdarsky trying to save real Chip Zdarsky from something that's hunting him.
I can just imagine a fictional Howard Chaykin showing up with real Howard Chaykin and two guys getting a fist fight.
Then I'm going to show you the last page of this. Sometimes in the last page they have people showing up, so it's kind of a spoiler if you don't want to see. But I was only like, who are these guys?
They're from
David Owing. What's his name?
Are they the Powers guys?
Yeah, they're from Powers. Yeah,
I recognize that art style.
Okay, so that was the big thing at the end. The Power. I was like, this would be a lot more impactful if I knew who they were. I think they're the Powers guys, but I don't know. So they'll be showing up next.
Do a Google image search on Powers and see if it matches.
Yeah, I was too lazy to do that.
Right.
You know what they chose? Why they chose Denver to put in under a dome?
Do I have a jar labeled whimsical?
Is this going to be a Chuck Rosansky joke?
No, they chose Denver because that's the city that the Beyonder pulled into Battle World in the original Secret Wars.
Ah. Sometimes I have an envelope for whimsical things, but not a jar. Oh, and the other thing I read digitally that was good, I finally read where's Pages? I finally read Reckless book, Friend of the Devil. Once again, on Hoopla, digitally. This is Brubaker and Phillips. I have treasury editions where the pages are as flimsy as silk sheets. Yeah, I have some of those too. This, once again, I enjoyed this thoroughly. I after seeing Sleepy Reader and Comic Crack and La Raza being I can't remember, maybe 2 out of 3 of them were a little disappointed with this one. I really liked this one. Takes place in the early 80s, maybe 81, maybe late 70s, early 80s. I can't remember, but it's he's, you could call him a private detective, but he really just helps out friends, and he's unlicensed.
Okay.
And sometimes they pay him, sometimes he hooks up with this girl unexpectedly. And then as he's kind of dating her, he finds out she had a stepsister who disappeared 8 years ago. So he goes about trying to track down the stepsister with, not a lot to go on, and you can't just go to the internet. So it's real, some Jim Rockford like detective work. And I just enjoyed it. I just liked it thoroughly. And of course, the deeper he gets into it just starts out, it's just like, I don't know what happened. Of course, as he gets deeper into the case, the more sordid and crazy it gets.
Right.
And it was just enjoyable. I liked it thoroughly. I still don't think his son is nearly the colorist that Elizabeth Breitweiser is.
Whose son?
But it was okay. What was that?
Whose son?
Sean Phillips' son, who's now drawing That Texas Blood, his own book.
Oh, okay.
He's also coloring his father's work on this.
Gotcha. The only other person I could think of was Matt Wagner's son, Brendan.
Yeah, he's doing a solid job.
Gotcha.
He does a solid job, but Elizabeth Breitweiser was the best of the best. I mean, she's really good. Mm-hmm. So it's a tough act to follow. He's solid, but not the best of the best.
Okay.
The best of the best. You guys ever use Hoopla?
No. I will once I get my library funds paid off.
Oh, library fines. Uh-oh.
Yeah, it was a few years ago. I checked out a couple things. I went to a branch of the library. It's like 3 or 4 towns over. And somehow I managed to misplace a couple things. I never did find them. And it's like, I got to pay that off before I can use Hoopla. So.
They'll send Mr. Bookman to your house.
If he can find the stuff, good luck on him. Yeah. It's like a needle in a haystack here, man. Yeah.
It always reminds me of the librarian in my town that my mother avoided for something like 40 or 45 years, and literally waited until the librarian died so that she could bring the book back. And she did. She had the same library book for that many years because she was terrified of the librarian. She must have borrowed it in like the 1940s.
When I was a kid, our town librarian was the stereotypical nice little old lady. I mean, she was the textbook definition of that. Everybody loved her.
Hold on.
She was great.
I think we have Tim down here, but I can't get to him. I see his eyes peeking up.
Wait, is Tim?
Is
Tim?
Oh, there we go.
There he is.
It's funny. You were not in the line. How long have you been there?
10 minutes off and on.
There's like the line of 4 people down the bottom that I add in. And then I can see about an eighth an inch of your eyes down. All of a sudden, I saw you moving down there, but then it wouldn't scroll down. Scroll. I have a 2-finger scroll there.
Oh yeah, man. Can you hear me all right? So
Yeah, I can hear you.
okay, nice. Yeah, hosting the show, little things like that pop up, and you try to keep a poker face, you know. Act like you know what you're doing, you know. How's everybody doing?
We're doing okay here. We're talking.
I'm sleepy. So.
We've been just fine without you.
Have you, Jared? Have you been up there the past few days?
Wait, what?
Have you melted up there the past few days?
Yes.
Oh, it's been hot. I've been out in the garage working on the lazy boy chair in that heat too, so it got hot for me.
A friend of mine in Vancouver, I did the conversion. Their temperatures are like 106.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went out and reflect for about an hour, I think the day before yesterday, and that required like an hour's nap after I did that.
I have found that when I do strenuous yard work, my yard work to rest time is now about 1 to 2.
Yeah.
So if I do an hour's worth of like hard yard work, not just sitting on the mower, that doesn't require any.
No.
But like trimming the fences, moving stuff for an hour, I got to sit down for 2 hours.
Yep. Yeah. Even the weed whacker, because it's heavy. Like I mean, for me, it's heavy. I'm like, I got those wobbly little lady arms, so every time I turn it around.
Yeah, the only work I consider myself retired from is the yard work. I've reached that age; I have no problem paying somebody. None. 40 years, over 40 years of that stuff. I'm done. Yeah. So I found, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I don't mind getting out and helping, a little every now and then, but routine. I'm done. I found a little honey pot, and I got 26 books for $1. But you want to see the highlights? I mean,
sure.
All right. So the Loki show, I haven't watched it. I'm probably not going to watch it, but this book took off because there's the first appearance of a female Loki, and I don't have the heart to tell people who don't read comics that Loki's also screwed a horse, so it doesn't matter, But I found this for like I said, what is that, like 70 cents a piece? So these are the hot books, 70 cents a piece. The Thor annual number 18 that I've been hearing so much about. It's a 90s annual, so get out. It's probably like you can probably find a whole box of them somewhere.
I don't even recognize that one.
Yeah, right. That's what I mean. People are getting real obscure trying to find stuff. And then this is the first time Deadpool fought Wolverine.
Okay.
This is like a $40 book, actual price. You know what I mean? It sells on eBay for like $30 to $110.
I remember that one getting hot like last year, the year before.
Oh yeah, I had like this. I was finding them left and right all the way back to about 10 years ago. This book, and then like there was a Punisher issue with there was Deadpool with a Punisher appearance in it. Everybody went nuts for and stuff. I was finding them left and right, and this one's taken off. And then you've heard of a book called Immortal Hulk, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I found a bunch of early issues.
4 cents a book, Sleepy says?
70 cents. 70 cents. Around there, if I've done my math right. I didn't do it on a calculator. I didn't know I was going to jump on tonight.
Didn't you say earlier you got 26 books for $1?
$26 for 26 books for $20.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Someone just got a calculator.
Yeah, break it out. So that's
26 books for $1 would be about 4 cents a book.
Yeah, I've got like Immortal Hulk number 2. What have I got here? Number 5.
Oh, cool.
Number 5. Yeah. Number 8. I've only read a few of these. I got like one trade and read a few books.
I read some of those digitally.
Number 7. They're all first prints too. A lot of people don't know. I mean, we probably know, but if you look at a UPC symbol, where's my camera at on this? The last number on your UPC code, if it's a number 1, it's a first print. But here's the one I wanted to get. My favorite monster from comics is Zimdu. the Titan. He was the original Hulk.
Wow.
And Al Elwig apparently brought him into the book. And I've read this arc. I borrowed the book. So it was interesting. But that's my favorite monster right there, Zimnu. And then, like, this was hot for like 5 minutes. The adamantium skin guy that Wolverine used to fight. I remember seeing this in Wizard or something. And then the fun stuff. I'll just show 2 or 3 more. I got another Ronin #1 by Frank Miller,
wow.
which I think that's his. I love this book. I love this story.
Always a good pickup.
And for fun, I had to get these. I got Elvira,
Elvira.
1 and 2.
Cool.
Oh,
Nice
that's
cover.
cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Linsner did these, so I had to get those.
Aw.
I'll get these all day long. Oh yeah. What'd you say, Daisy?
Oh, I just said I love Cassandra. Hey, Elvira.
She's awesome. She's
I
so
love her.
awesome. Then I got a Thor #145. It's coverless, but what I didn't notice is that I love those kids back in the day that would poke, to punch a hole, and they would put them in their binders and sit in class and look like they were working. Or people actually collected their comics, and this is how they stored them in a binder back in the day.
I have those. I have those ones I've showed on here before. My old Silver Surfers and Neil Adams X-Men that I found at a garage sale in the early '80s that had 3-hole punched in the side and tape reinforced. Whoever that guy was, he reinforced with a strip of tape down either side, front and back cover, and then 3-hole punched it. I was like, that guy was really thorough and liked him in a binder.
Yeah, I remember being a kid going to like yard sales and a little flea market they had, and I would see those binders with the comics in them. I mean, it was wild. And then the 2 pieces that I have here that's for conversational purposes, like breaking the ice and stuff, is I found the movie adaptation of Arachnophobia.
Wow. I didn't know there was one.
Neither did I. So when I saw that, I went, yes, please. And
oh my God, I would have loved that.
looks like it's Hollywood Comics. I've never seen this. Didn't know about it. Yeah, Hollywood Comics somewhere there. Yeah, no idea. I'll do a little research here. It's approved by the Comics Code Authority though, so they're the real deal.
Wow.
Oh well.
Yeah, absolutely. And now my favorite piece that I got out of this, and I love it. I think it's hilarious. Is I got a Dell 15-cent book of Tom and Jerry for 70 cents, still stapled, and it doesn't appear to be ripped. I haven't opened it yet, but it's. Cool. I mean, it's still got some discoloration, but this is a beautiful copy for a Dell comic.
Yeah.
What
you don't
year
see
is
those
that?
too often.
Why don't we say we take a look? I'll open this bad boy. It's got some spine ticks on it, and a little break here and there, but. I see. I don't go. With a 9.5 or 5.5. I'm like, it was either loved or it wasn't. There's no in between. 1961.
Wow.
So somebody had. Somebody had the choice of getting Fantastic Four #1 or this.
Look at that.
Yeah. 1961, 60 years old
this
year.
I think that book is halfway between now and the year 1901.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's pre-me. That's
that
before I even
that probably sold 4 times the amount as Fantastic Four #1.
I'll tell you what's wild is I have absolutely no doubts. Well, I didn't think about that, but I have no doubts. But there's actually some creamy spots on these pages that are still white. That's amazing. Nice.
Oh, we have some Dell comments here. I love Dell and Gold Keys. Those are the best comics to look for at cons. I got the first appearance of Pixie and Dixie and a Huckleberry Hound Dell reader copy. Yeah, I haven't delved into those too much, but there's a like in the early 2000s. I remember getting an issue of, I think it was Comic Book Artist, that was all about Dell and Gold Key. And I can remember I bought it and I was like, I don't know much about Dell and Gold Key. I wasn't too excited to read it. Then when I read it, it was fascinating because I didn't know too much about Dell and Gold Key. It was like I was learning all this new stuff.
Yeah, I think they have some of the best covers on top of anything else. They one of them published the worst comic book I ever read called Brain Boy. It was like a Roger Corman film, on paper.
Yeah, but some of those painted covers they had for things like Dr. Solar and Magnus Robot Fighter, the covers on those were gorgeous.
Yeah.
First appearance, Uncle Scrooge. Yeah, I think what was it, Warren Kremer? I think who was the Dell Gold Key cover artist and art director. He did a lot of nice stuff.
Nice.
I think that was, I can't remember that, but I had learned his name from reading that one magazine.
That's awesome.
On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, the last comic I got this week was a freebie because my comic shop owner was like, what am I going to do with this?
I was wondering when I saw the list of things that you got this week. I'm like,
Jungle Fantasy Fauna nudie comic.
Is that one of the ones we look up in previews and they've got like 20 different variant covers and they're all nude?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's explicit. But I was reading, and this is the first one I've actually held in my hands. I can't even, I don't even want to show the stuff on YouTube because it's hardcore. But, what I found interesting about it in reading it, first of all, it was a little because I think this is a zero issue, so I think it was an introduction. So there was like 3 different stories: Flora, Fauna, and one other girl named something. And what I found interesting, well, first of all, what was weird was first they gave you the story. They gave you the story, and it was still explicit. I mean, there was still drew a sex scene in it. But then at the end of the issue, they gave you the same story because there's like 3 short stories in it. They gave you the same story, except it was nude throughout. And it was kind of like, huh?
Okay.
Why did you just give us nude throughout, or give us clothed and nude? It was just, I just found that an odd choice. But I realized in reading this, I enjoy, because first of all, it's they actually do try to tell a story, but there's just explicit sex scenes in it.
So it's like that porn about pirates.
Yes, or jungle girls. It's porn about jungle girls. But what I liked about it though was kind of all the lowbrow stuff. Being an indie guy, you come across a lot of lowbrow stuff, but it's always an aesthetic choice. It's like all the and I realized in reading this, all the lowbrow stuff I read. Well, I think the Jungle Book may be better writing than Spawn. I have to say, I didn't wince through it at all. The writing didn't make me go, ah. Oh.
Was it better than that Jungle Book we read a few months ago?
Yes, it was. But I think about how, like I said, I read highbrow, lowbrow, which is what most lowbrow stuff is in terms of, and I don't want to say it's not genuine lowbrow because it's usually made by people whose aesthetic is lowbrow. But that's still their aesthetic choice. Like take a look at Red Room, the Ed Piskor one, which I think the second issue came out this week, but I didn't buy it. I think that could be described as lowbrow because it's all about sex and murder, but he chose to make it about lowbrow because that's what he's interested in. But with something like this, it has no choice but to be lowbrow. If you want to put out what was that?
It's kink. It still has a kink. If it's going with the sexuality of it and things like that, and not just a jungle girl, it's a kink. That's kind of what
I don't even. But you have to. It may be a kink, but it's a lowbrow kink.
Yeah. Well,
because what I'm saying, these are the most lowbrow comics out there. I would have.
What's the difference between highbrow, lowbrow, and lowbrow?
hair.
Highbrow, lowbrow is an aesthetic choice. You want to make a lowbrow comic. That's your.
So
that's your
lowbrow is just accidental, and highbrow, lowbrow is intentional.
Lowbrow has no. If you want to make a nudie explicit comic, you have no choice but to be lowbrow. You can try to make it. I've read like some Eros comics from years ago.
Oh right, yeah.
They try to be highbrow with their nudity, and like some European comics have nudity in them, not as explicit as this, but they're erotic.
Right.
But they're highbrow eroticism. That's the path they choose to walk.
I've always seen it when it comes to print. It's did they put a plot in there to try to give it a little bit of something else besides just the TNA all the way through?
Well, they do put a plot in here, but there's still no being highbrow. It's just too explicit.
It's honest. It's like, this is what you're getting. That's
what I found so interesting and refreshing. Not that,
like
but also I want to say, what was that?
It's kind of like Robert Williams versus Ralph Snort.
I also want to say it in a way that I don't think highbrow, lowbrow is dishonest kind of thing. I don't think that's not Red Room, I think, is genuine. I don't think it's dishonest. That's really what he's interested in.
Now I'm all just disappointed that you're not showing any of it on the videos, because I'm like,
now she wants to see it.
Now,
I just
my curiosity is piqued. It's just purely like
I'll IM you an image.
Okay, it's purely curiosity. Where we all know the trouble I've gotten into in the past with being curious about stuff like what's that.
I'm usually okay with showing nudity on YouTube, but this is too much to show on YouTube.
But it's drawn.
I'm gonna send her a picture right now.
Yeah.
But like I said, what I found, this is like the lowest brow of comics, and it's the lowest brow of pornography.
See, now we're going back to the Penthouse comics. That I think you just reached the point of why I like Penthouse comics. It has all of that. It has lowbrow, highbrow, and actual art. You know what I mean? Mixed in.
Yeah, I'm thinking that it's kind of the difference between, as somebody said, like pornos with a plot and a budget, as opposed to the ones that are just, they just say screw it. Literally.
I'm glad I listened to the conversation, because I was about to bring up the musical Hair. Are you familiar?
There you go, Daisy. I just sent you.
I've seen a version of it where they're clothed hippies, and then I've seen the version where they did the whole thing naked. And when they get to the end with the military, everybody you could identify everybody by the hat they wore. That's what was so fun.
Well, this is, I think, this is as lowbrow as comics and as lowbrow as pornography. I think people would rather have their girlfriend walking on them watching an X-rated video than reading a comic like this. Because explaining why you're reading this, even if you were reading it as pornography, explaining that to someone would be like, people understand while you're watching a video. So that's what I found so fascinating about this, was just its sheer low. It's like, I don't think I've read anything I hate to say genuine, because I think highbrow, lowbrow is genuine lowbrow, but I haven't read anything as sort of lowbrow like this in a while, and it was kind of refreshing.
You still working?
What's that look on your face, Daisy? You're muted.
Daisy, we can't hear you.
The dogs made noise, but I'm just wondering if this guy who drew it has, I presume it's a guy, because I don't know if he's ever actually seen pubic hair on a woman, but
There should be none anymore. It's in 2020. That's been out since 05, at least.
Nitpicking the details might not be the way to go with something as lowbrow as this.
Yeah,
I really did enjoy its lowbrowness.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that when it comes to pubic hair, like, you are all not alike. I've actually seen somebody who had just enough pubic hair to go with their tattoo of a lawnmower going across their pelvis. Just saying.
Hey, a lot of us have been to art school, so we have seen a variety of gardening techniques in that respect, and none of them look like the one that's in this picture. But hey, I can't say I've seen them all. It just looks like she's wearing a merkin. That's
a merkin.
the line can be.
I mean, that's.
It is. It is 4th of July weekend. It'd be appropriate to have a merkin out there. So.
Now, just imagine if that artist had access to Zipatone.
Yeah. I would say the line between highbrow, lowbrow, and lowbrow is blurry, and that's what got me contemplating it, because I don't know where it is. It's kind of like it's tough, which is why I don't want to. And thinking about this and describing it, I kept saying, I kept like insulting highbrow, lowbrow, which isn't what I wanted to do, because I think that's genuine too. But it's just a different thing.
Yeah, art-wise, it's like I've never really tried to have this conversation where I explain it. I just know it when I see it. But somebody like Robert Crumb, I've always wondered how they got away with things that they did and other people didn't. You know what I mean? You go through his body of work. He's done cuddly little animal cartoons. He's done out and out incestual stories. He's done some wild stuff and some wholesome stuff.
I think he's someone whose aesthetic is genuinely lowbrow, and he somehow stumbled into being the darling of the highbrow, lowbrow scene.
Yeah,
it's like people think Robert Crumb is this great commentator on society and stuff, and he's really a lowbrow artist kind of thing. So it's like,
and he's like that artist that I've always seen, like almost stereotyped in television shows and stuff, where he treats his audience like crap. You know what I mean? Like, no, I won't sign. And you know what I mean? He's one of those artists that, like, you adore me, and even he talks. I mean, all across the board, he treats his audience like crap, and they laugh it up and they love it. I've never understood this world. You know what I mean? And I've seen it in real life also.
People all thought Zenoscope was lowbrow with the covers. Then some people saw some of the stories, like the Wonderland comics, were really good stories. Yeah, like it's. I think it is a little bit lowbrow to put sexy covers on the comic, but we all understand it. We all like sexy covers, so it's not
there's these grim fairy tale covers or something.
Right.
This book that's been going, and I mean, I keep getting told the covers don't match the interior, and they hate that they do.
Yeah.
But, so I don't know.
The covers are just there to get people. Are there people who get off on drawings of porn rather? Yeah, I don't know. I've never run into somebody who has, but people who buy these comics keep it on the down low.
Jared, have you never heard of Rule 34?
Exactly. There are totally people who get off on that. That's, I mean, I don't know. I guess they don't usually talk about it, but I mean, when I worked at Forbidden Planet, I mean, way back when, it was.
Yeah, at least I could understand it then, because it was not readily available. Erotica wasn't regularly available back in, but now it is. So I wonder about that.
Yeah, but there are people online who grew up doing nothing but watching anime, and they don't know how to relate to real people.
Yeah,
right.
Hence, Rule 34.
Yeah, I assume there have to be, but
Well, there's a lot of people who've got it subversively, right? There's people who collect the Headlight comic, or the 40s
Yeah.
and the 50s. Okay, that was subversive. People who get the bondage covers where it looks like the villains got the person tied up. And then there's like a whole bunch of Lois Lane covers and a few other things where I've never heard the name for them, but I call them spread eagle comics covers. And
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
cover of like Lois Lane is like she's like been dumped in the ocean. Superman is coming to save her, but her legs are spread open and there's a shark coming to get her. But if you don't have that mind, there's tons of them like that. If you don't have that mind state, that's the thing about art. No matter how simplistic it says more about you in what you see. I see Lois Lane getting attacked by a shark. Somebody explained to me about that, and I looked at it. Then I see this other issue where she's tied up, and there's a rocket coming at her, and her legs are just a little bit spread. I'm like, oh my god! All these years.
Yep. It also
Pizza delivery in the jungle. Yeah.
I think it also depends on what you've been exposed to. Like, if you grew up in a really rural place where, like, or in a conservative atmosphere where you really didn't have as much sort of access as more urban kids do to 42nd Street or various other outlets for things like that, then a comic full of erotic drawings probably seems like the raciest you can get in that environment that you're in.
Yeah,
it probably seems really.
It is.
I actually found it refreshing. And its lowbrowness.
I will say that a bunch has taught me a real appreciation for lowbrow, and it's why I love what's his name, John Waters. That's
a person. They're highbrow, lowbrow though. That's their aesthetic.
Right.
John Waters is his highbrow. He's the god of highbrow, lowbrow.
I tell you what, Pink Flamingo to Crybaby. I'll take Crybaby every day. He can get low. Yeah, I'm like, something.
I love Pink Flamingos. Like, that's the stuff of his that I like, is Pink Flamingos and Female Trouble and all the all those done way back when he had a budget of like $35.
Innovation, and a drag queen.
Damien Dyer here says it's art, in my opinion, nothing to get off on. I agree with you there, but I don't think it's made to be art. At least not these nudie comics. Like Milo Manara is made to be art. Sexy, erotic art. This stuff, I'm not...
Having just seen a photo of what's in this book, it's not drawn to be... Like, if it was beautiful artwork, that would be one thing, but it's not. It's definitely drawn,
Yeah, and it's worked for hire artwork. These guys aren't drawing this. They're drawing it for a paycheck.
Right.
They're doing the best they can, but they're drawing it for a paycheck. See, I don't know Crepax, but like I said, Manara to me is erotic art, kind of. That's highbrow. That's highbrow erotica, Manara. You can be sexy and explicit and be highbrow. But this just is subversive covers having an appeal before the ready available. Yeah.
Let me just say, Guido Crepax did the Valentina comic that that Gore Vidal keeps doing videos about.
I know from his channel, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's a more intimate take on erotic art than Manara.
Right. But I think people like sexy drawings. That's just like people like sexy drawings. That's why I think drawings of sexy women on covers, especially, sell comics.
Okay,
so I think that's
there you go. You segued into my question. We have Daisy here. We got the audience here. You talked about Craig Russell drawing pretty boys and pretty men.
Right.
You got something like Mike Grell's Warlord here, right? Now look at this cover. Right? Now, it looks like he's nude. We know he's not nude. He's sitting there and he's nude. It's Mike Grell. This is from 1978. This is issue number 16, right? So is this lowbrow because of the way he draws the picture? Trying to make him look nude a lot?
That's not where his influence comes from. His influence is coming from Edgar Rice Burroughs.
There we go. Okay. And that goes to John Carter remark. Scott nailed it. That's where I was hoping to go with something like this. Yeah.
Well,
what did he say?
If you're familiar enough with the artist to know who their influences are, that really gives you a clue as to what they're drawing from.
Yeah.
And what
I would say
Mike Grell's influence is not, from Tom of Finland, for example. It's from Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Tom of Finland. I fucking love those versions.
I'm just using that as an example. Yeah.
Mike Grell made fun of himself drawing erotic versions of man in the first appearance of Star Slayer.
That's funny.
I would say that Star Slayer could be considered lowbrow only in that comics were considered lowbrow then, and you could get away with stuff like that in them.
Yeah.
I was going to say, speaking of Star Slayer, my local, semi-local, it's a 30-minute drive comic shop, had Tim Truman as a guest back in the early 80s, mid-80s. And somebody the other day put up 2 pages, with one is a Star Slayer cover, and then there was an interior page. And they were only asking $70.
Oh, yeah, you told me. Oh.
Yeah. I was like, they could have sold that easily for $1,000 or more.
That The Origin of the World by Courbet. That's what I call a horny artist painting.
I gotta look.
I love the 40 good girl. Yeah, I'm a fan of the good.
I have a whole book of their stuff. Yeah. There we go. Mike Grell's men always seem like erotica. Yet, this is what I was getting with Scott. It's got those pulp roots, and Scott nailed it when he said, Edgar Rice Burroughs, right?
I never really thought of Mike Grell's guys as erotic. I can see why you would, but it just never struck me that way.
Yeah. But the pulp roots that Grell was pulling from for Warlord, the pulp books were lowbrow back in the day. Is what anything pulp was lowbrow. So I was hoping to get a trail of conversation going from, what's lowbrow and why, and that's where I get lost. I know it when I see it. I just don't understand how some people get around it and get accepted.
And it's a tough line too, because sometimes it's just perception. I've read one of those Sunstone books from Stefan Sepjak. And there was a lot of eroticism in it, but I didn't like it. I just found the writing not very good.
Nowadays I'm not sure how to say this because she's been my friend forever, but my lesbian friend Kat has read the Sunstone books and absolutely loves them. She is the audience for that. That's the only problem.
I was not.
Yeah.
I think Conan and Edgar Rice Burroughs characters are partially erotic. And there was always some of that going on in the pulps, I know.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing with Conan, too, because before Frazetta, nobody had there wasn't a consensus of how Conan looked amongst all the other artists that worked on that. If you look at Wally Wood's version of Conan, he looks almost like a Roman character. But when Frazetta came along, everything became really codified into what Conan's visual perception was. And he's such a stamp that has never gone away, and it probably never will.
Tim, you're wondering why.
I'm sorry?
I said Tim looks like he's giggling, but I'm wondering why.
No, I love when Scott finally lets out all this knowledge he has. This is what I get to hear when we're hanging out every now and then. You know what I mean?
Got it.
And I was like, you got to get on YouTube. And when he starts pulling from this stuff, I'm so proud. I'm like, this is it. This is what
Well, he's also talking about Edgar Rice Burroughs. I mean, if you look at, depictions of Deja Torres, basically in the book, she's nude with some jewelry on.
Yeah.
You could never do a realistic movie of the John Carter on Mars as the characters were described in the books, because they were just running around naked.
Right.
Well, do you want to?
And there's an element on the portrayal of bodies in Burroughs stories that are definitely supposed to be erotic, both for men and women. Because, especially in the case of the men, because most of these heroes come from civilized backgrounds, but they go into a barbarian land, and in the barbarian, and by making themselves savages, they lose all inhibitions, and removing their clothes is a representation of them losing their inhibitions. So that's where the male eroticism comes from in Burroughs stories.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
See, a lot of this stuff in my mind is part of a formula. You know what I mean? Of the story, it's part of it. You know, you trying. Oh, man, we're shooting so much from the hip here. Okay, like you see a Humphrey Bogart detective movie. It's film noir. Film noir makes the city a character, and there's a femme fatale, and that's what I'm
Right.
talking about. Where we get around to those lowbrow stuff. When is it part of a formula, and when is it just about the eroticism? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm right on the verge of clearly saying what's on my mind, but like I said, it's a feel. When I read
It
something
takes a
lowbrow,
while
I
to
know
think
it
of
is.
it.
Yeah,
Like
I know lowbrow.
This book actually made me think a lot after I read. Just because, like I said, when I was like, "Wow, that's," just because I hadn't read anything lowbrow in a while, and I'm trying to think of anything I can't think of anything else I could compare it to. Like almost all the lowbrow comics I've read are highbrow, lowbrow. They're people making comics to be lowbrow, consciously saying, like I said, like Red Room saying, "I want to make a lowbrow comic," and that's because that's my aesthetic. And there are like Quentin Tarantino, his aesthetic is lowbrow. So he consciously makes lowbrow movies, kind of thing, and that's to me. That's normal. To me, that's sort of the normal lowbrow that I encounter.
So when I think lowbrow, I think Crumb, I think John Waters, and I'm trying to think of that guy that made the movie Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, and he always had.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what that guy's name is, which has blown my mind. But he had like.
No, it wasn't Roger Corman, was it?
No. This dude.
What has Sleepy Reader been reading?
Yeah, I have a copy of that book. Believe it or not.
I have Tarzan Alive. I finally found off of eBay. He did a version of Tarzan Alive of where it's more or less it's an autobiographical tale of Tarzan if he existed in the real world.
Right.
You know.
It's somebody fighting with King Kong and everybody has a boner.
Not King Kong. It's Doc Savage.
But yeah, Feastin' known is one of.
Tarzan. I get them mixed up.
Yeah, but the thing is, Farmer then wanted to do actual stories with his ideas, and so he came up with Lord Grunneth and Doc Caliban as stand-ins for Tarzan and Doc Savage. And that's where Feastin' known comes from.
I do want to say to Sleepy Reader, spoiler warning, I haven't got to the end yet. No.
But you will now.
Russ Meyer, yeah.
Russ Meyer, that's him. That's where I think lowbrow. It's entertaining, but I know what I'm watching for. I get a Russ Meyer film, I know what I'm in for. You know what I mean? It is because of Mystery Science Theater and Rob Zombie I discovered Russ Meyer. Russ Meyer. You know what I mean? So
yep.
You insert Russ Meyer and you know what you're getting. You know what I mean? So
right,
you're getting boobs is what you're getting.
Your expectations are managed when it's Russ Meyer. You know exactly what you know.
I don't think Saga had very lowbrow pages. I think they were just dabbling in taboo.
I think I know the pages that Mind the Comics is talking about. So I want to go ahead and give like a point in his favor for saying that if it's the pages I'm thinking of, it was a dabbling of taboo, but this was also a dabble of the lowbrow. If I'm thinking the same pages. Yeah.
Maybe, but it would be highbrow, lowbrow. King Kong boner is a scary picture. Whoops, spoilers.
I would watch that horrible movie with King Kong fighting anybody with a boner. I mean, both.
Damien,
I the movie Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
I think a lot of lowbrow
Gordon, not Flash, but
Flash Gordon, right? I remember hearing about that in like the second grade.
It's a parody. It's a parody, and it's funny because it's a very mild X-rated movie, like it'd be a Skinamax movie.
Right.
Look up anything by Blue Moon Studios. I've got a musical fairy tale by Blue
the
Moon
model
Studios.
work and the stop animation work are actually pretty decent.
Yeah. Well, tell her what the ship looks like. Tell them what Flesh Gordon's ship
Giant
is.
phallus, basically.
Giant.
And highbrow, lowbrow comics are often meant to be humorous.
There we go. The humor part of it. Maybe that. That's what I mean. It's another part of the formula.
But there's no humor in this. That's just it.
This is.
What was that?
I said, you think I don't know what Flesh Gordon's ship looks like? I worked in the bullpen.
Like this has there's no humor in. There's no self-conscious lowbrow humor in this. That's what I mean by lowbrow. Yeah. I think self-conscious lowbrow humor is part of highbrow lowbrow.
So where would you put?
I had a shock per issue.
Yeah, in terms of that, where would you put something like Little Annie Fanny?
On the shelf.
That would be more in the erotica category.
Okay. I'm just curious.
That was cold.
Lots of Wally Wood was lowbrow.
About Wally Wood. Wally Wood
also.
Yeah, he could do anything.
He falls into the horny artist category too.
Right, but I mean, he could do that. He could turn around and do the most beautiful work you've ever seen at the same time, which had nothing to do with that.
Yeah,
Wally Wood. I think may have been the most. What's the word I'm looking for?
Versatile.
Yes, versatile comic artist of any of them.
That's an interesting question. Lowbrow in the past just barely broke society's taboos in the age of ever porn machine. How could anyone do a modern lowbrow? That's why when I read this issue, I was amazed because this is one of the many porno comics out there, but I think this is genuine modern lowbrow.
This is one of those conversations you go down the rabbit hole because he's talking about breaking taboos, and it makes me think of Dave Stevens bringing back Betty Page to everybody's consciousness, and what she was doing back in the day was very taboo, but it's pretty tame by what they were doing in the 70s with Marilyn Chambers. You know what I mean?
Right,
yeah.
There's even who was it? It was Gore Vidal, I think, mentioned something about it was Creepax. He said that there was one person at LCS. He saw a copy of Creepax there, and he said, "Oh, did you order that for someone?" And his owner said, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, give him my name if he wants to talk about it." And he's like, "No, I can't tell you." He wouldn't tell who bought Creepax to Gore Vidal.
Right.
And of course, the reason was like these are still lowbrow taboos. No one wants to put one of these on their pull list, and I've never seen anyone in the comics. Like I said, my comic store owner didn't even know what to do with it. That's why I was like, I'll take it, give it to me. And he gave it to me for free. He must have gotten it for free too. So it's like I think these are still genuinely modern lowbrow because they're not trying to be. They're just trying to be dirty comics.
Where would you put Burlesque? Burlesque was like what Betty Page did, and now it's considered an art form, and those ladies go on tour and have comic book creators like Eric Powell. Eric Powell used to put him in their comic. I mean, he put a real one in his comic, and because they were friends, know.
I've never read Zombie Tramp, but I'd assume that just by its name and the covers I've seen that's highbrow, lowbrow. That's what we don't. It's like Gore Vidal, you were summoned.
Like Haster. Just say his name.
There is a theory of lowbrow, highbrow. Yeah, and I think what King Spoit 1 said was genuine lowbrow is rare these days because everything's out in the open. So it's like genuine lowbrow is tough to find. Which is when I read this, I was like, "Wow, I think this is genuine lowbrow." I'm not even. It's kind of interesting. I found it. Yeah.
I mean, going back there now, like Tim was talking about, he did a book that was called Satan's Sodomy Baby.
Yeah.
And it's really, really, really funny.
It's his best.
Like, it will
It's his
make you
best.
laugh until you hurt. Funny. You know?
It's his best work. I mean, it really is. I mean, sincere. It's his best work. You know, he came
And-
up. He even came up with a story that everybody believed, including me, that a church had heard about it and they were trying to ban the book. And he was like deadpan with it. He reported it like it was real news.
Yeah, if any church did, they probably would. But I mean, and he takes pot shots at people, like public celebrities and stuff. He doesn't pull any punches.
There's a guy walking around with the dirty. There's a guy walking around with the dirty diaper through the thing. Just saying. I mean, yeah.
If a church tries to ban it, that's how you know it's really good.
I imagine manga. There's so many different subject matters in manga. I imagine they must have some lowbrow.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Most of the Betty Page photos were destroyed. There was a chance that her and the
Yeah, if you it was like a felony to actually photograph anything nude from the waist down. I mean, felony. Like they will come and I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I have the Betty Page biography here somewhere where they talked about it.
Ins and outs.
I think highbrow, lowbrow is more palatable to people, like Red Room, versus some comic that is purely about getting. I would think so.
See, and a lot of lowbrow stuff, I find sometimes it's more enjoyable to read, just because you're seeing these visceral characters.
Yeah.
You know, with all these flaws and stuff, and I mean, it's just there's a grit to it when you read it. Again, it's that thing where I know it when I read it. You know,
you're seeing something that someone put on the page because not only did they want to, but they wanted to share that with other people.
Yeah, it's almost like it's a weird. Yeah, maybe I think you're getting there. It's like a weird honesty is coming through, and you don't know it. There's a weird truth and a weird honesty that you're picking up on, but you don't know it. Yeah. You know what I mean? You really got me thinking about this.
But once again, I want to point out that highbrow, lowbrow is not dishonest. That's because I keep coming back to that whenever I say something like the lowbrow is honest. That kind of implies that the highbrow, lowbrow is somehow dishonest, but it's not. It's just a choice where genuine lowbrow isn't necessary. It's like the only choice made with this was we're gonna make some money doing nudie erotic comics, and once you make that choice, lowbrow is your only way to go.
I can see it.
Yeah, there we go.
Anyway.
Grant Morrison's filth has some lowbrow in it, but it must be highbrow too, because
Tell me you guys have read the filth. Tell me you've read it. I mean, it's Rocky Horror Picture Show meets X-Files meets I'm trying to think Memento a little bit, but there's like this occultist pornographer producer who makes gigantic black sperm fly around and kill people through a spell. I mean, it's okay.
And what movie is this?
It's a comic book called The Filth by Grant Morrison. The Filth. 13 issues.
I think Bunch even edited some of that. But
it's
Carmen isn't lowbrow at all. Carmen is highbrow, and the nudity in it is I guess you'd call it natural nudity. To me, the nudity in it too is the artist showing off.
Jeffrey Jones. Wait a minute.
He's that good.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Jones, he did tasteful nudity in heavy metal and a bunch of his indie work in the 70s stuff.
Right.
And then I'm trying to think of somebody who does like some low brow nudity in their book. Probably, I hate to say it, but Bart Sears, when he did some books, everybody looked like they had inflated boobs and stuff. Yeah. Where Jeff Jones drew women, or Jeffrey. Is that who I'm?
Yeah, Jeffrey Jones.
Yeah. There's art, and then there's that lowbrow where you make. Yeah, I'm getting to see it. I'm just going to shut up because I'm down the rabbit hole and I got a million thoughts on it.
Wow, that's quite a description there, Damien.
Yeah, well, I think that's let's make money off people who need to jerk off to come. I think once you make that decision, you're lowbrow. And let's jerk off in my pictures together. Yeah, then see, I don't even know if the artist actually. So I guess that these are two separate situations. I think he means. But yeah, I think once you make either of those decisions, you're lowbrow.
here's how I'm picturing how he came up with that comment. He's listening to us, and he's like, "I've had enough of this. Let's just get to the heart of the matter." All right, they're beating around the bush, or no bush, since it's 2021. But it's stop beating around the market. Okay, so
to change subjects now, I want to show you the other book that got me thinking just as much as this one, but in the wrong way. I mean, that. Let me show you. I actually. Here we go. Everybody warned me about this. This is the Jonathan Hickman. I was thinking of Crumb, who said, that is weird. Crumb is just weird, isn't he? This is the Jonathan Hickman Omnibus. Volume. No, this is just one volume. Jonathan Hickman Omnibus. Holy cow, is this awful. But it's awful in a special way.
Before you get on, can I say one thing real quick?
Yeah.
And I'll shut up. The Honey Pot that I was at, Hickman's Fantastic Four and Avengers run were all in one box, and nobody's touched them for months. I was told directly. I was so go on.
First of all,
that's right.
I want to complain about the book designer for this, because it's got a whole bunch of Avengers 24 through 44 and New Avengers 13 through 33. So there's 40 issues in here. Yeah. Paolo warned me against reading Hickman's Avengers. He did. And I'd like to say his warning was taken since I didn't actually read it. But I did flip through every page and watch it go by. I'm not seeing Sleepy's posts in the chat. That's weird. Did you block them somehow? But anyway, first of all, a book design problem. Let's look at the beginning of this in the credits. Here are the credits page where they tell you who did everything. And they say, and there's no page numbers in the book. 800 pages, no page numbers. So it's like Avengers 41, Mike Diodato Jr. is the artist. So, okay, that's Avengers. So I'm like, all right, because I wanted to look up who did something. Well, at least I can find the beginning of the issue, because there's no credits in the book itself. At least I can find the beginning of the issue. They have these pages here. But guess what? They just have a title page of the story title and no number. And in the table of contents, they don't have the story title. They have the issue number. So it's like there's no way to actually look at the credits of who did this, because we're all monsters now. Well, what issue is that? Is that Avengers 24? I don't. It was like I wanted to look and see who the artist was who did it, but I can't, because there's no correlation between the table of contents and the actual book.
Because it's designed by people who never picked up a comic in their life. I'm telling
Exactly.
you.
We're the current collected edition as editors.
Yeah. Let's see. Is it still Jen Grunwald and Jeff Youngquist? Yep, Jen Grunwald.
Yeah, I think those guys were recruited from a message board, and they have no idea what it's like to edit a book.
If you ever meet Jen Grunwald, don't mention my name.
Yeah, what they did was they would come up with these lists where the comics are supposed to fit together.
Yeah,
and they did that for essentials and then for epic collections which hadn't been published. So they would map them out. And while that is practical, it doesn't mean that you just let them handle the collected editions department.
It's nuts that I couldn't look up who the artist was on any of these. It is absolutely nuts.
That's not good.
But I just happened this week to have on some video about humanity and the search for meaning. And some guy was like, oh, and how there's been a crisis of meaning in humanity. And this guy was saying it began in the 12th century with blah, 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 blah. This book is a crisis of meaning. That's what this is right here, because it's 800 pages, and it means nothing.
It goes
But it
nowhere.
kept wanting to mean something. The first observation I have of it is it's 800 pages, and there's not one human being in it. There's not one person who's not an Avenger, who's not an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., who's not an agent of AIM. There's not even a background person. There was one person, I think, who's somebody's father on one page. That might be the only normal person in 800 pages.
Now, you said this is 40 issues, right?
Yeah.
And now, the way I remember it, I would check out some of this stuff because I could read it in 2 to 3 minutes per issue. So you're only looking at about an hour, if you're...
Oh, no, you couldn't read this in 2 to 3 minutes an issue. No, there's a lot. Then read Stern's event. Yeah, do not read. Hickman's Avengers is probably not the order. YouTube probably doesn't.
It's the sleepy reader.
Ah, I see. They blocked out you. Oh, I see you now. Now they see him. Weird. He has to clean up his potty mouth.
Yeah. For people that still can't see Sleep Reader's comments, he just said.
Right. Yeah. Okay, now so it's like 40 issues, 800 bit, and like I said, and it's all about. Well, first of all, they really want it to have meaning, so they have like they have the Illuminati guys in here. It's all about Reed Richards and Submariner and Captain America and Iron, and they're all constantly fighting each other. And if they're not fighting each other, they're fighting alternate versions of other heroes. And it's just all this. They're either fighting with each other or arguing with each other. For 800 pages, and there's the plot is minimal in that all the alternate worlds are crashing together, and they're trying to stop it. And at one point, if it wasn't important enough that the Illuminati were all together, at one point Namor is like, "Oh, the Illuminati don't have the guts to do what has to be done and kill all these other worlds," so he gets together the Cabal, which is Thanos and all these villains. So it's like it so desperately wants to be meaningful, but there's just nothing going on. It's just constant arguing and fights for 40 issues, trying to be important.
So other than trying to be important, it's like the comic equivalent of the Seinfeld.
No, because Seinfeld is actually funny.
Right.
There's one thing that we have to remember about Jonathan Hickman. He was Bendis' apprentice.
But I've read his indie books and have liked them. This is nothing like this.
And his early Marvel work was pretty good. Secret Warriors and S.H.I.E.L.D. is very interesting. But they're supposed to be more unreal. So you kind of don't miss the fact that there are no supporting characters. And Fantastic Four, since it's about a family, it still reads very personal. And when he picks up the Avengers, which is the most epic book that he writes, then all of the characters, they're just in there to service the plot, and it doesn't work.
And it's like even all the locations in this are other planes of existence locations. Mm-hmm. There's like nothing human in this. Yeah. All these issues, all these pages, and there's nothing human in it at all. But it's so desperately. Oh, here's the one page with somebody human in it. I just flipped by. Hold on. I just have to show you this just because it's the only one. Let's see here. There's somebody's dad who shows up on this page only with a baby. And that's the only... And he may even be a superhero. I don't know. because I didn't actually read the whole thing. But he's that's the one page with a human being on it. Everything else is fighting everybody from different Earths. Well, even the set, even the scenes are empty of people. And
So-
every time they go to a city, it's 1,000 feet above the skyscraper for one panel. And it was just crazy flipping through it.
So
And like I said,
seriously,
what was that?
well, if you go with almost 60 years of Avengers history and you took out this whole Hickman era, it wouldn't skip a beat, would it? Like, you could take this whole thing out and it would never, ever, you would never miss that anything happened in those years.
No, nothing happens in those issues. That's exactly the problem.
Yeah.
What's worse, the nothing that is building up to doesn't even happen in the main book. It happens in a crossover event. With a main crossover event book.
That is the kicker to this whole story. Like I said, this so desperately wants to be meaningful. It really does. It has all these big, huge, meaningful events. And the biggest event was all the multiverses were crashing together, and you had to like kill other planets to keep your planet alive, or something. I didn't read it close enough to get the machinations of the plot because they were pointless. But at the end of the story, they failed, and everything crashed together, and the new Secret Wars crossover begins. So this whole thing, there's no resolution to. They failed. They so desperately wanted to make it meaningful.
Wait, it's 800 pages and there's no resolution?
Oh, it ends with all the worlds crashing together, and to be continued in Secret Wars, their new crossover.
I've made this analogy before. This is just like in the early '90s WWF, when all the weekly shows were the main wrestlers fighting jobbers, and everything interesting was happening in the pay-per-views.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, this
nothing happens in the main title, and everything interesting happens in the event crossover events.
To bounce off what Paolo said, this was when you went from what was it, Secret Invasion, all the way to I don't know. It was one event after the other. They were already plotting and telling you about another event before the next one happened.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, it didn't matter. It was every year, and none of the books mattered, and then those events didn't matter. All of a sudden, everything was undone. Like it didn't happen, just like that run of Avengers, the Secret Wars, and all that stuff. The Siege. There's been no ramifications. A couple years later, it's like those never happened. You can
make a lot of analogies. Yeah, you can make a lot of analogies between superhero comics and wrestling in terms of all these crossover events and everything that don't mean anything. And I figured that the big difference between writing comics, for all these crossover events in the '90s was that professional wrestling had better writers.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I know why this happens. Nowadays, because they write for the trade, they take forever to get to any point that normally would have to happen in 4 or 5 issues. So they manage to have 6 to 10 issue runs where nothing really happens, but because it takes so long to get there, people who have been reading comics for 10, 15 years haven't read anything in the Avengers that was not written by Bendis or Hickman.
I also think what Sleepy says here, there are a lot of people who loved his Avengers.
Yeah, because they don't.
I think
with those 10 to 15 years, nothing before happened. They don't know. They think Bendis and Hickman are good writing because they've never seen anything else.
And I also think they bought into the idea that this has meaning, in that they kept like in this, they kept upping the stakes time after time, introducing more superpowered characters until they got to since Sleepy mentioned them before. I mean, I said Tim mentioned them. The Beyonders showed up. Even the Beyonders got involved. First, Galactus they mentioned, and the Celestials, and then until finally they got it. So I was like, they wanted it to have meaning so much that they just kept introducing and introducing more and more powerful characters.
Yeah, and you know how they make these look badass? Oh no, the Living Tribunal is dead. Oh no, oh no, the Watcher is dead. Then, oh no, Galactus is dead. Oh no, the Living Tribunal is dead. You keep upping the ante, and then you have to create even more cosmic, more powerful cosmic entities that live outside the multiverse. It doesn't, it doesn't make any sense. What does this mean? It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, that's what astounded me about this. Is it so wanted to be meaningful, but it meant nothing.
To bounce off what Paolo said earlier in the week, I don't know if this is true or not. You guys might know, but they found an old video of mine where I'm like, Marvel's not making anything new. They're rehashing everybody, mixing them up like a deck of cards, whatever. And they said, oh yeah, they're bringing in Galactus's mother. Is this real?
So you don't even know if that's real. I wouldn't be surprised.
No. I don't think I understand. Years ago, I would have laughed and took it as a joke, but with some of the stuff that's been going on with Marvel, I can't tell. I can't tell if it's a joke or not.
Well, Tim, here's the question: is Galactus's mother as powerful as Epstein's mother was in Welcome Back, Kotter?
Find Epstein's mother.
Does she have a rubber hose? That's what I need to know. You know,
in Donny Cates's Thor, Thor is the herald of Galactus, but Galactus is the herald of something else that's even way more powerful, and it's something weirdly cosmic is going to happen, and I don't care.
Yeah, I don't. Fenner 27. I don't read any Marvel or DC stuff either, but I'm not going to paint them all as this bad. I just can't. They can't be. The law of averages says some Marvel and DC comics have to be better than this one.
I came in at the tail end of that, and I'm like, "You damn straight, they got to be."
There's no way. I couldn't believe how, just like I said, it was so trying to be meaningful and wasn't, and so far off the mark.
Okay, in context, that's lowbrow Avengers.
Meanwhile, this lowbrow book hit its mark. You know, it didn't aim very high, and it reached it. This book aimed to be highbrow and failed for for 40 comics. How do you fail to reach your mark for 40 comics?
I just wait till there's a crossover between those two comics, Jerry.
Mommy Dearest Galactus.
And also, how do you fail for those 40 comics and somehow make that 800-page book less interesting and worse than a single jungle porn comic book?
Yeah. I mean, so much talent, time, and effort went into this, and this stupid thing is better.
Okay, can we just take a moment? Can we just take a moment to realize that it is 2021, July 2021, and listen to what we're saying with what they're giving us to work with? Think about that. A porn comic is better than 800 pages of Avengers for Marvel Comics, people.
How is that possible?
There you go. And this is what I've been saying This is what I've been saying for like the last since about 2015. We just bottom lined it. This is like finding out that who's that dude that was like one of those pretty boy singers, Leif Garrett. It's like finding out Leif Garrett sang. He actually did sing "Feels Like Teen Spirit" with Nirvana. That's what today feels like in comics. It's Leif Garrett singing with Nirvana. That's what it feels like. Think about that.
But this is what your local library is good for. You can take this out of the library and then just go give it back. Don't cost you anything, and you don't have to have it hanging around.
You need to put a warning label on the top of that. Get an index card and then get some packaging tape.
Just thinking the same thing. You should put a little Post-it on the first page and say, "Don't bother."
Like, even though you got it for free, you feel still like you paid too much.
Hey guys, I got to. Oh, I'm gonna hop off here. I don't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry. I'm gonna hop off here, but I will not be here next week. Our anniversary. I'm not gonna put it out on the internet. Our anniversary is next week. We're taking off to the beach for a week. So,
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Have fun at the beach.
Which beach? Out of curiosity.
Oh, I'll tell y'all offline. I don't want to have the millions of Cavern of Chaos fans run down there and get creepy and come after us.
Understandable.
I mean, Daisy, when you're on, our views go way up over the week. Come on now,
All right, Sleeves, see that? There are some Marvel comics that are good. Current Hulk and Thor comics. See, there has to be.
Nice.
They can't all be this bad.
I think that Al Ewing stuff and Guardians of the Galaxy is somewhat readable. But that's it.
Guardians of the Galaxy. That stuff's good.
The good old party beast from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I found this picture. I'm gonna get out here after this, but I found this picture off the internet. It's drawn by George Perez, but I don't know when. It's the Beast, and it's right down the middle. Half of his fur is nice and shiny and combed, and the other side is like razzled, like you got hit with static electricity. And he sat there saying, well, half of my body I use this shampoo, and the other half I use this. Which one do you think you should buy? It was hilarious.
Wasn't that a commercial back in the 70s or 80s or something?
I don't know. I'll put it on Facebook. I don't remember seeing it, but I'll put it on my Facebook page. So But I'm gonna hop off here, guys. Y'all have a great weekend, man, and see you in a couple weeks there. So
you're the bubble to this champagne.
Have a nice vacation.
Tiny bubbles.
Thank you.
All right.
I want to put you on camera if you keep looking at me like that. Watch this. She's running. I'll see y'all later, guys.
See you later.
Bye.
There are great things going on in comics, just not. Oh, we know that. I just showed 9.
Oh, I've been telling people that for the last 20 years.
Yeah. I just can't believe this exists. That's my biggest, most astounding thing, that this thing exists and missed the mark so badly and kept trying to be meaningful. It really, really wanted to be meaningful. And it's just so far from meaningful. It's amazing.
So does that prove that dark matter actually exists?
It's anti-meaningful. If you put it next to something meaningful, it may implode.
You have the anti-meaningful equation.
Happy anniversary. Ewing's Hulk is much better than his other scripts, Paolo.
The TV show that we're watching, as far as meaningful, trying to be meaningful, and isn't. It's I don't know if anybody's seen, not to deviate from comics, but what the hell is it called? The Manifest, or just Manifest, whatever it is. Yeah. We just started. I think I just got done with the first season of it. They have way too many meaningful conversations. So.
I watched the first season of that and then bailed.
Yeah, it's. I'm still sticking with it for the second season, but I don't know.
Yeah, the Avengers book is a tribute to the power. Yeah, I don't. And it amazed me that it ended without an ending. They ended with a failure. It's just kind of like, I couldn't believe it. And I didn't. Like I said, I actually flipped through every page, and I think it took me. I mean, there's so many pages. It took me 4 15-minute sessions to get through, and that's without reading the words. Some of them I skimmed, but. That's like Tim said, he read the whole book in an hour. I'm like, no, I flipped. It took an hour to flip the pages and actually look, not read. So it's like, whoa.
Well, I know what I'm not reading.
Yeah,
is Ewing's Guardians of the Galaxy better than Abnett and Lanning's run? No, it's a superficial retread of Abnett and Lanning's run. You can read it. It hits all the right story points. It's like watching an episode of a TV series that you don't usually watch, and you'll enjoy it, but won't feel the need to come back.
Huh.
That's actually happened to me several times. Where like I watched this and it's better than I thought, but do I want to watch any of the others? No.
Venner 27 liked that show, Daisy. He thought it was a bit boring.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that it really gets, they could cut out at least half of it and it would be just as interesting. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I remember that.
Heartwarming stuff and just get to the supernatural shit.
Yeah.
Like, we all know she's going to hook up with the fiance who's married to her best friend. We don't care. Just
it's like a Godzilla movie. That's the one type of movie that you don't want to see human development in.
right.
You see the giant monsters beating the crap out of each other.
Right. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, you know when they did the live action Transformers, those movies would be so much better if there were 0 humans in them.
Yeah. Yep.
I think Sleepy Readers.
I'm sorry. Did you know that RoboCop was a Transformer?
Yeah.
Yeah, his name was Stopped and Was Crying.
Oh. That one hurt.
Oh no.
I've never read Headlopper, but I've heard good things about it.
I've never even heard of Headlopper.
Neither have I.
That's one of those. I think it comes out quarterly, and it's a big comic with a lot of pages. That's one of those I wanted to get, but it wasn't in the budget at the time, and I kind of never have checked it. I'll have to see if it's on Hoopla. From the beginning, Bumblebee's better than all the big Transformers movies. I haven't seen a single Transformer movie, so I wouldn't know.
I haven't either.
I saw the first one, and shortly afterwards, I read, I don't know, some interview or article or something that said that what the hell's her name in it? Megan Fox.
Yeah.
That she had really bad BO, and now that's all I can think of when I think of that movie.
Yeah, you wash her up, she's good to go.
Oh yeah, she's. I mean, easy on the eyes, but you just don't think of a hot chick smelling bad.
Has she done anything in a while?
I feel good about myself.
I don't know.
It seems like she kind of fell off the face of the earth there. Yeah.
I actually know her from the season or 2 she was on New Girl. And I was like, wow, who is that? And I looked it up. I was like, oh, that's Megan Fox. No wonder I've been hearing so much about her. She's been blessed with a good face.
Yep. Although I haven't seen what she looks like recently, but yeah.
So let's talk about some good comics before we sign off.
Yeah. You know what? I finally got around to taking off the shelf.
What?
Now it's 1:30 and my brain just shut off just as I was about to announce. Oh god.
American comic? European comic?
Yes.
Marvel,
Starstruck.
Starstruck. Ah, okay.
I finally got around to reading Starstruck.
Mike Caluto?
Yeah. And
you
know what?
Get the big oversized edition?
Oh yeah. And you know what? It took me forever to get to page 18, not because it's boring to read, but because there isn't even that much dialogue, but you have to stop and look at the art. And you know, when you read a comic for the first time and you just want to get everything done so you can get to the end, and you want to notice the stuff. No, you're reading Starstruck. No, you have to stop and look at the art. It calls to you.
The main problem with Starstruck is it doesn't make sense as one big story. It's just kind of a whole bunch of little stories done over time with no real thread that ties them all together. So it's like, I wish I had known that going in when I first read it. Because it was one of those, I got the big oversized edition, whenever it came out 5-6 years ago.
Right.
And I remember reading it and just kind of being confused a lot. Because it's not one big story. It's just it's almost, the story is almost a lark. The story is almost an excuse to do the drawing. And it's like, we don't feel like doing that story anymore. Let's move on to this one. We're kind of tired of that one. Let's move on to this one. We're kind of tired of that one. Let's do this.
Well, the way I'd put it, it's kind of like 2001. You've got to pay attention to it. You can't turn off your brain and be passive. Because if you do, you'll lose your place really quickly.
There's a lot to keep track of, but a lot of times you don't really need to keep track of it all because it doesn't all connect.
Right.
So it's like keeping track of what you need to keep track of.
Well, now, do you read the little, what's the word I'm looking for? Do you read the little dictionary descriptions that put in the back about all the different things that go on in the Starstruck universe?
I would have read it at the end if it.
Okay, I'm just curious because it's almost crucial to reading the story.
That's like the Now he's reimagining. I hate when the back material is crucial. It's like they should say, read that first. Another thin line in comics argue me too much sometimes. I think Kaluta is one of the ones who does it well, though.
Kaluta does everything extremely well. Yeah. Too much Aragonis. I don't even know what language that is. What kind of odd Moon Man universe is that? I want books that are nothing but Sergio Aragones.
I don't
Preferably
know if
at least once a month. You know?
I don't know if I ever made a video of it, but I've got the Gru the Wanderer artist edition.
I have that as well.
This is just fun to look through.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff.
Now I want that.
It's fun. I've got. No, I don't. Mine's not sketched.
2012 this came out. Boy, that was a long time.
It's been out a while. And that one's. You can find that one a little bit cheaper than most other artist editions.
Yeah, that one I think I got because it dropped in price to like dirt cheap, and I was like, I got to get it. A few of them that happened too.
I also really need to get Walt Simonson's artist edition of the, it's not an artist edition, but it's the Alien book.
Right.
The Alien, the illustrated story.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
That one.
If you don't have it now, get it as quick as you can because the value on that book is going through the frickin' roof.
Yeah, I know. We got one a little while ago and got Walt to sign it, but I'm not sure. It's like somewhere in Spence's stuff.
Yeah, you can't touch that book now for less than $200 or $300.
No, I think we got 100.
That's right. Gru and Tarzan should be coming out soon.
Yeah, next month I think. Yeah.
So, Scott, do you like Usami Yojimbo Color Classic?
I like them both.
Yeah.
They work just as good in black and white to me as they do in color, and the color ones look great too. So I really don't.
I really enjoy the color ones.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been buying the black and white ones all these years, so I obviously love them, but I'm really enjoying them colored.
I mean, if you prefer color ones, go ahead and get those. But if you like black and white ones too, start wherever, just start at the beginning. But they're both good.
I mean, I'm rebuying all the issues in color as they come out, so I obviously like, and I really am enjoying the color.
Yeah, I think it just depends on the reader. If you're a black and white guy, that's fine. But if you like color only, you've got that option too.
Yeah, I think there's some art that could be damaged by color if it wasn't meant for color, but I don't think Usagi is one of them.
I can see that.
I don't. The color, adding color doesn't add any problems to the art.
Right.
But like coloring From Hell, I haven't seen the whole thing yet. I've only seen pages that Eddie Campbell did. I don't know if coloring that improved it.
I think you'd have to have a really good colorist to make that worthwhile.
And Eddie Campbell did it himself, but
right.
And
it's funny because to me, some artists I like are not necessarily. I don't like when they color themselves. Yeah. And Barry Windsor Smith is a prime example of that for me. I love his art. Early in his career, he was fine, but later on, he would just use so much purple and so much yellow that it got distracting to me.
Yeah. Kurt Swan, Superman, and Black. Kurt Swan is one of those guys who I was never a Kurt Swan fan. Never grew up liking a Superman. But then sometime in the 80s, I saw some of his original Superman pages in a museum, and they looked amazing. I got to say, they looked a lot better than the printed page. I really liked them when I saw the originals. So I found, that happens sometimes. Sakai doesn't seem to, he's just. he's not, I agree with that. That's why the color fills it out. So he's not really, he's just kind of drawing. He's not adding shading or gray tones.
I mean,
that's
his art style. He's not really into really, a lot of cross hatching and things like that.
Yeah. All right, so we should wind up our broadcast now. It's getting late for everybody. It's getting late for Paolo.
Yeah, now we all got to rush out to the shop and buy that Jungle comic.
Jungle Fantasy Fauna. Demand it from your shop. I heard this was better than the Jonathan Hickman Omnibus. How can that
be? That's a good one that they need for the promotional blurbs.
Yeah,
their second printing.
You pull a quote on the back.
Better than Jonathan Hickman's Avengers.
All right. Anybody have any last words?
Next Wednesday, I'm going to be on the Graphic Man's channel to talk about Asterix. Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern.
That's cool. I love Asterix.
I've not read a ton of it.
I like it.
Scott, you have anything to say before it's bedtime? Daisy line?
I'm awake now. Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody out there, have a good one. Good show. The Pizza Jungle was exciting. All right. We'll catch you guys next week.
Bye.